one. That's unfamiliar there.
Yes. Let me. Oh my goodness.
Hi guys, this is Norm.
Morning.
Good morning.
Morning. Oh, you know what? Keith,
Yes.
can you send a message since you have the host
Oh, to,
to the person who's on the waiting room resistance center?
See the waiting room, Keith? Yeah,
Yeah.
we could send that. To the trustees, good morning. We're just working through admittances here. Sometimes people's names look quirky when they land in the waiting room. They don't necessarily show their name. So again, just bear with us for a couple minutes. I think we're getting there. But Keith, yeah, it will help to know who that individual is in the waiting room.
okay.
We are live streaming, everyone. So again, in accordance with open meeting law, we are broadcasting right now. But again, I think if we just give it a couple more minutes, I know we've got a couple of trustees still coming in.
Everybody's so quiet.
No background elevator music.
The rain is the background overlay.
Oh, that it is.
By my count, Madam Chair, I think we have 8 trustees so far. I know that we've heard from 1 who can't make it and 2 others who will be late. So that would put us at 11. So therefore, I'm thinking in that the individual in the wait room is not a trustee. So we can try to give it one more minute, Keith, to see if you get a response back. But I think we need to be inclined not to have them join in.
Thank you.
Yeah, Nanette, once you rectify that, we have a quorum, so we can get going.
Yes, so let me record.
No rush.
Okay.
Person went away, so.
Okay, thank you. So I'm ready
Great.
for roll call.
Well, I see you now too. All right, good morning and happy rainy Friday, unfortunately, everyone. And welcome to the STIC Board of Trustees annual retreat and regular board meeting. I'm sure we all know it's Friday, September 24th. I don't know really where the summer went, but Nat, can you call the meeting to order and do a roll call, please?
Yes, Mary Kate Mueller,
Present.
Janae McDonald, Elizabeth Bosito,
Present.
Monique Selden Riley, Maurice Lindsay,
Present.
Vicky Kraus, Samalid Hogan,
Present.
Bill Johnson,
Here.
Norman Roldan,
Present.
Jeff Sattler,
Present.
and Max Starks. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. Like to call a motion to approve the minutes of our regular meeting that happened on June 28th, 2021. Do I hear a motion?
I motion to accept the minutes from the regular meeting of June 28th, 2021.
Bill Johnson, second.
Great, thank you, Betty and Bill. Discussion. Hearing none, Nanette, would you please call the roll to accept the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of June 28th, 2021, please?
Yes, Mary Kate Mueller,
Yes.
Janae McDonald, Elizabeth Posito,
Yes.
Monique Seldom Riley,
Yes.
Maurice Lindsay,
Yes.
Vicky Kraus, Samalit Hogan,
Yes.
Bill Johnson,
Yes.
Norman Roldan,
Yes.
Jeff Sattler,
Yes.
and Max Starks.
Great.
Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. So again, I want to welcome everyone to the 2021-2022, right, school year. It's amazing how the year has passed quickly, even with everything going on. I'd like to spend a couple of moments really welcoming our new trustees, and I'm going to unfortunately put you on the spot. I know some of you have already talked about yourselves. But just to give us a little bit of an overview of your role and your connection to STIC, just really high level, and then I'll continue with my remarks. So Monique, let me put you on the spot because you popped right up in front of me really quick. So Monique, why don't you jump in as our student trustee?
Alrighty. Hello, everyone. Good morning. My name is Monique Seldon Riley, and I am the student trustee for this academic year. So in my role, I do work under Student Government Association, and I kind of work as a liaison between the Board of Trustees and the student government. I do a lot of planning with like student activities and things of that nature. But also help on the board to make decisions and talk about other matters. I was motivated to do this because I really want to kind of be a voice for students and represent student needs in a way that they can, kind of be heard, especially in a time like this where there's so much going on, you know what I mean, and so much change. So that's me.
Great. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And so look forward to working with you because the student voice is really why we are here. That's our number one priority. And we do that cross collaboratively with our faculty, staff, and everyone in administration. So thank you and welcome to another school year. Norman Roland, let me just transition right into you, sir.
Thank you very much. Yes, my name is Norm Roldan. I born and raised in Springfield, Massachusetts. Worked for Basic Medical Center. Been with Basic for 26 years. I was school committee member a couple years back. I sit on the zoning board for the city of Springfield. I also chair the school building commission, which we just opened two brand new schools recently, which is Lincoln and Brightwood, and we're happy about that project. And moving on to the couple more projects. I'm happy to be on the board. I'm excited. Seeing a lot of good things happen through STCC with family members and families and people that I know as well. So I'm excited to be part of the board to be able to help out where I can.
Great. Thank you so much, Norma. It's really a pleasure and a privilege to have you part of the board. And we're looking forward to all the expertise and some of the experiences you bring, especially being at Bay State and in Springfield. So thank you so much. Samalat Hogan, I know we spoke the last time in June, but I'm going to put you on the spot again and just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yes, of course. Good morning, everyone. My name is Samalit Hogan. I hope you can hear me okay.
Mm-hmm. Can.
Great. Excellent. I am the regional director for the Massachusetts Small Business Development Center Network. Our office is located right across from STCC at the Springfield Technology Park. And I've been doing this job for about 6 years. Prior to that, I was consultant for the Holyoke Innovation District. And before that, I was working as a senior project manager for the city of Springfield. I work with a lot of small business owners. I'm the vice president of Business Network International, Wilbraham chapter, vice president and president-elect for the Springfield Rotary Club. And I also serve in the Governor's Latino Commission. So it is a pleasure to be part of this Board of Trustees and bring any insights and information you may need about small business needs here in Western Mass. And of course, I do have friends who have gone to STCC and have gotten degrees from there. So I got their feedback as well, and looking forward to learning more about what faculty, students, and the staff are requiring of us. So thank you.
Great, thank you. And it's such to transition into opening remarks. I think we all know someone, right, who has gone to STIC, whether they're a colleague or a family member, and using STIC as really the launching pad to someone's education and career. And I think that's why we've all chosen to volunteer our time. And I'll say again how appreciative I am of you, everyone taking this. We all have other full-time jobs and other things going on, and the love and the passion that we have for STIC really comes through. But that also means there is a lot of work to do. And I know we are in the midst still of COVID. There is a lot of things still happening. It's becoming and still remains a very fluid and agile situation. So I ask that everyone be, Dr. Cook will talk about some things that have happened on the community college area, and also in our area in general. And I just ask everyone to remain safe and be healthy as we continue and embark on this new school year. You can see that we are still all remote. Will remain this way for a while. The governor has extended the open meeting remote kind of approval process, and those, Dr. Cook, are probably not the right words, but through April, we'll continue to look at things. But this board has never had a challenge with quorums, and that is really a true testament to the people who are part of this board and who continue to work with the faculty, staff, students, and the administration. As I said, there's a lot of work to be done up through the cabinet division slides. And as we talk through that, we will be talking about Building 20. We'll be talking about governance. We'll be talking about NECHI, facilities. That's almost 5 major things that we've mentioned already. So I really want to turn it over to Dr. Cook to really kind of kick us off to this incredible school year and look forward to all of the good work that we're going to be doing collaboratively. So with that, Dr. Cook, let me turn it over to you. Nanette, I know we're still expecting Mac and Vicky, so you'll keep an eye and let them into the meeting as they become available. But Dr. Cook, let me turn it over to you.
Madam Chair, much appreciated. And to our trustees, a warm welcome again on this Friday. The energy, you start to get a feel for Zoom meetings, and it's palpable. It's great to see your enthusiasm and your investment in this college. We really do continue to have a very important mission for Greater Springfield, Hampden County, Lower Pioneer Valley. And so again, a warm welcome. I appreciate the chance to also continue to embrace and welcome our new trustee members. You are very much appreciated. This day in September is always really helpful. It gives us a chance to just reflect a little and do that look ahead. And so that's what you have prepared, myself along with our leadership team, our cabinet members, is really that strategic look ahead. And I say that knowing, as Mary Kate mentioned, there's these interconnected areas. What we did, all the hard work over multiple years for accreditation already provides a roadmap. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. It includes the need for our next strategic plan, which will be developed in many ways, just like our self-study for accreditation was. Certainly COVID, and I appreciate that word, Mary Kate, of fluid. It really is the best way to describe just what a day or a week is for our administrators and our leadership team. There is a lot of fluidity needed because we don't know what's going to come at us or what's going to change. And certainly the Delta variant, I think, has made us even more aware of that. Governance and sustainability, yes. How do we make decisions? How do we make tough decisions? And all with a mind to ensuring that long-term sustainability We're going to talk more about that. Really, the way to put our hands around that is there's opportunity and there's transformation. You'll see that stat, but when you went for an institution that delivered online classes, maybe 10, 12, 13% of your courses to then over 80%. Not only is that a credit to our faculty for their adaptability, but it also has implications for the future. Our students really have continued where they can to register for those online classes. They are not necessarily in a hurry to come back to campus and take in-person classes. So there will be a real important look ahead for us to try to get our hands around what that might mean. So fun fact, everyone, 2022, which is amazing to say out loud. I still have only gotten used to 2021. It will be, next March will be 2 years that we'll have been in pandemic conditions. And next year, 2022 is also the 55th year of STCC. So some really important milestones for us to look ahead on. But let's jump in. What I'll do is I give a bit of a foundation, and then each of our cabinet members has a slide where they'll share their outlook and then also pause for questions. And then we have questions at the end. But let me help set a bit of a foundation. I'll take the next slide, which really is the dive into accreditation. Again, for our newer trustees, accreditation only happens once a decade. Pretty significant that it only happens that infrequently, which means there's a lot that goes into when it does happen. Again, we prepped for 2 years to create what's called a self-study. It's basically like our own doctoral dissertation as a college. It's over 100 pages, mapped to the different standards that the New England Commission of Higher Education has. And we basically already tell them how we've assessed ourselves and how we project to further improve in those different areas. So in this case on equity, this idea of really looking at some of the disparities. We know students of color do not stay with us and graduate with us at the same rate as their white counterparts. Well, in that evaluation team report, they first of all acknowledge that we at least have student performance metrics where we can track this. We also have some significant initiatives that we have been working through and have teed up, particularly for this year, to really align ourselves to that Massachusetts Department of Higher Education equity agenda. On facilities and infrastructure, again, their words from that visiting team, a staggering $316 million in deferred maintenance. That is a very, very big number, and unfortunately uncommon in Massachusetts higher education, certainly in public higher ed for a community college. So that, yes, as they say to us, this again, these are quotes from their report that they have submitted to the commission proper. Building 20 needs a clear resolution so we can concentrate on our infrastructure and those limited resources. Certainly on COVID, a testament. I want trustees to be heartened by how much work we have done as an institution to ensure, to protect, and to provide a healthy and safe learning environment, because we have been back on campus for over a year now. First, we piloted last summer, and then we had these low density classes, particularly in those that had labs. And Nechi called that out and said that the institution has done an excellent job with our communication and the documentation related to them. I'll take that next slide, please. On academic quality, again, sometimes we get lost in so many of the details, so many of the logistics. But at the end of the day, part of what accreditation is, even though I sometimes will say it is also related to financial aid. When you're an accredited institution, it allows you to distribute federal financial aid. But really, it's about academic quality. One of the things that we did not have in place is what's called academic program review, comprehensive to the college. We had it in programs like nursing, medical assisting, sonography, those health programs that had their own accreditation, they were doing that. But Nechi asked for this. It's one of those very clear standards. And so we had stood that up back in 2018. And sure, tensions emerged as the visiting team noted. Sometimes because it's new like that, there was a lack of clarity for folks on what it is and what its purpose is, in particular when it's referenced for part of program discontinuation. They did commend us, you'll see in that quote, for actually having comprehensive academic program review. Again, we do need to keep this going because we need to ensure our programs meet industry standards. We need to make sure that we are clear-eyed about what an investment in equipment and technology will require for them to do that. And we need to address things like enrollment and how well we are enrolling students of color in these programs. So that's really what academic quality looks like there. On assessment, again, I wanted to give a couple of those areas that they're going to ask us to improve. They're going to ask us to focus on, and they'll ask us for a report likely on how we're doing with this, as they discuss what's called a lack of systemic college-wide assessment. Basically, it's not just some of these other elements like your quality, how, have you invested in equipment technology, but what are students learning? And by the way, in NECHI's world, a grade does not count as a way to describe what students have learned. They actually want you to assess that learning, have students demonstrate that. And so we certainly have struggled in that area, and they really encourage faculty to really help embrace that work. And again, we are a work in progress, but that's why, again, you need a forum like academic program review, so that that faculty have a place to look at not just quality, but how they're helping to measure what students are learning in their program. I'll take the next slide. Governance and sustainability. And this is an important one. This is one that we have every expectation that we're going to talk about this year, and we want to partner with trustees on. I put the standard there again. I don't know if folks had a chance to look through the slide deck in advance, but there's some, again, misnomers about what is governance according to the New England Commission of Higher Education. It's really this established institutional mechanism and procedure where the chief executive officer and senior administrators consult with faculty, students, and administrators and are appropriately responsive to concerns, needs, and initiatives. It doesn't necessarily say who gets to do what. It really is a process expectation, is that there is consultation and that there is engagement. What NECHI then points out in their evaluation is that an entity like the All-Unit Congress is first not a formalized governance structure. Trustees never codified it, voted, or otherwise endorsed to say that is our internal governance structure. Further, what they say is the college would benefit from an in-depth governance review and overhaul to help formalize the development of campus-level policies, communication, and the transmission of advice and opinions from faculty, staff, administration, and I would say students. So we do need trustees. We need your leadership in this area to assess, review. In this day and age, we would welcome a chance for you to hire a consultant to look at different models and methodologies. But again, I tried to provide a lower stakes example. How would the college become smoke-free as a campus? Right now, we do allow smoking on campus, and there are plenty of higher education institutions. There are plenty of healthcare institutions, other organizations that do not allow smoking, given what we know in 2021 around that. But we don't have an entity that allows administrators and individuals who represent the different constituents. We don't have that singular body where we can talk, hear recommendations, and seek all that. And I think, again, that type of clarity coming from trustees will be immensely helpful in the years ahead for us. Before I go on, I just want to pause there for a second. I believe that's the NECHI and accreditation sort of debrief for everyone. I'm not expecting that you necessarily read I think it was maybe a 60 or 70 page report that the visiting team put together. I have shared that with trustees. We've shared that with the entire college. But again, that's some of the highlights. There are many strengths that they have identified for us. And this is certainly not a question around commitment or the way that our individuals care. This is oftentimes a conversation about systems and changing the way in which we do that engagement. And that's part of the look ahead. Again, I'll give one small little anecdote. In the past, and I think I've shared this with trustees, students who were evening students or they were online students, they did not have a human being who was assigned to them. Their advisor of record was the advising center. We now have changed that where every single STCC student is assigned a person as their advisor. It's that kind of change in systems that can go a long way with a lot of these goals, how we engage students, their retention potentially. It also certainly addresses some of the equity challenges because the majority of those evening students were students of color. So it's that type of change that we are looking through, and is part of what we were able to pull out as part of the equity audit, where we had another consultant this past year. So let me just pause and see from trustees if there are any questions on accreditation.
Yeah, excuse me, Dr. Cook, really quickly, I mean, I'm not asking for anything really in the weeds, but when you talk about the student learning outcomes in the assessment, what does that look like, and what do we need help with faculty, staff, and the students to really
Yep.
operationalize that as we move forward?
Yep. So it's a great question, and it's hard because I want to be wonky with the response, because in some ways it's about research methodologies. It would be, the way we can summarize this is there are a set of what we call learning outcomes for any student. Any student who graduates, we want them to do, let's say, 5 or 6 things, regardless of the program that they're in: nursing, manufacturing, our applied psychology program. We want them to do 5 things: that they're a critical thinker is one, that they have quantitative reasoning, as we call it. That's just another way to say that they have a certain math skill set. What we haven't systematized as this sort of cultural assessment, Mary Kate, is that we've evaluated those skills before they graduate. And a lot of times it takes people power. Who's going to do that work? And you want to provide faculty with those resources. The faculty are in an area, they're not necessarily research methodologists. So we want to help them with that. But it just takes a system to do that. It would be, for those who are, let's say, in their last semester at the college, they may be writing a significant paper. You can use that paper and map it against different things to look for their ability to demonstrate quantitative reasoning, their ability to show critical thinking. You just need a system where you're looking intentionally at students at that juncture of their education. Again, that's a little oversimplified, overgeneralized, but NECHI is looking for us to have that type of culture of assessment where we want to know what students are. And frankly, if we see weaknesses, dare I say, if we're seeing that across the board students are not as strong in quantitative reasoning, it means we have further work to do, let's say, with how we approach mathematics. It's not just for the math faculty to be somehow different in the teaching of statistics. It means in other classes, we may need to work that in different ways.
Great, thank you.
Dr. Cook, I have a quick question. This is a every 10-year occurrence, okay, for the full review accreditation process. They leave you with a list of recommendations, areas where we need to either add something like we just talked about, or, buff up things, whatever. In the 10-year interim before this is done again, are there follow-ups? Does anyone come back? Do we have somebody that we check in with and say, could you review? We did this, bada bada, whatever.
Yeah, great question, important question, Betty. So there now is baked into this process what's called a 5th year report. So we are already providing them with a midpoint update. And by the way, when myself and Mary Kate go in front of the commission formally in November to receive accreditation, they'll also tell us those things. In your 5th year report, we want to hear more about A, B, C, and D. Sometimes colleges are asked to provide a 2-year report now. A lot of times in this day and age, it's about finances. And notice there is nothing in here about the fiscal piece. I would say that's a testament to the difficult work we've had, notwithstanding, around finances at the college over the last 5 years. That is often the real hot topic, is how a college is managing some very difficult fiscal conditions. So again, we're not sure exactly what they'll ask for in the timetable, Betty, but they absolutely will be asking for a report in prior to another decade coming along.
Okay, good.
Other questions? Okay, I'll keep pushing through. I'll take the next slide. So again, where does this sort of dovetail? It dovetails into the development of our next strategic plan. So our last strategic plan sunset as of December of last year. NECHI, the Department of Higher Ed, they all knew that we had accreditation this year and that would be our springboard. And so once we have the report and what the timing is on future reports, to the question from Trustee Lex Exposito, this will help us, and likely would be January, where we would launch, again, a full and inclusive strategic planning process. That would take us from 2022 to 2025. I don't think it's necessarily in our best interest to try to create a 5-year strategic plan like our last one was. Who knows where we'll be with COVID, and we want to allow for a shorter window to look at that. But we need to focus on certainly enrollment in our fiscal management, call that sustainability, decision-making, and our priorities. Again, we are a comprehensive community college, but there definitely are differences in our priorities in how we be responsive to our labor market. Capital needs, right? That is the conversation for STCC. Sometimes we always start with that facilities implication, and we need a solution for the School of Health. And then, yes, opportunities and transformation, reinvention. Early college is one of those conversations. How do we continue to really pave the way with our credits in the hands of high school students so it's more seamless? And we can even build in expectations around that, where they just, in the case of, let's say, the High School of Commerce across the street, they literally just come across the street when they're done and they're graduated. And again, student retention. If we can narrow those gaps for our African American, for our Black students, for our Latino, Latina, Latinx students, if we can narrow those gaps, we have the ability to sort of shore up some of the retention and therefore some of the enrollment considerations we have. We want to place equity at the center. We know, again, there's just tremendous opportunity to really help more of our students of color graduate. Process-wise, the Mass Department of Higher Education is a key participant. This is a little bit different than the self-study. They will actually assign an individual who will be a liaison of sorts for us. And ultimately, in addition to all of yourselves who will vote to endorse and adopt our strategic plan, the Massachusetts Board of Higher Education also votes to approve and endorse that strategic plan. So there are multiple layers to that process. I'll take the next slide. Again, a COVID update. Really, you've seen some of this information before. I talked about the change, the pivot as many have taken to calling it to so much delivered online. And again, I would share, to the credit of so many of our faculty, online is different from remote. If you've heard those terms, remote really is like we were last March, where we need to extend spring break and there was a scramble. Online really is faculty spending time investing in a significant plan for how they deliver a course. They are compensated for that as well. I think I've shared with trustees, we've compensated faculty about $1 million for their online course development. So these are really thought through, planned efforts. It's really that last bullet was my hedge on vaccination. As you saw this past Monday, the 15 community colleges have come out and put a vaccine requirement out there as of January. That's for all of our employees. That's for all of our students. If you are a student who will take only online classes, you will not be subject to that. Remember, we have 2 unions, so we will go into what's called impact bargaining with both of those bodies. They will want to discuss this requirement, but that's really the big change, the big news for us. And we wanted to give a runway. Obviously, here we are in September. That's down the way in January. So happy to see if there's questions about strategic planning or COVID.
Bill Johnson. I understand that it's something that STCC could not do on their own. You had to do it in unison with the other 14 colleges. You're planning on putting this in effect in January of 2022?
Yes.
Is that going to be enough time for impact bargaining? Is that I mean, how can I say this, Dr. Cook? I don't agree with it, but I understand your authority to do it. And I understand the need to do it in unison with the other colleges. So with that being said, I'm not going to debate the merits of it. I guess I'm just going to question the putting it in place, and if January is a realistic time frame.
No, I appreciate the question. We do think so, Trustee Johnson. And some of that is because some of the surveying that the community colleges have done of employees and students, and particularly of employees, we know there are high rates of vaccination already within our employees. We also know informally that the unions, this is not a surprise, there was a lot of diplomacy that took place. And so we're hoping that there is, and I wouldn't say quick resolution to where bargaining will land. And again, that is done, again, for trustees on behalf of all 15 community colleges. So this isn't like STIC just goes off and meets with our local chapter and gets things figured out. But we do think, and it may take through October to make that happen. But we are optimistic. And clearly, if something changes as part of that process, what has been continuing, so part of my education with unions, is that they can impact bargain they can negotiate the impact, but not the decision. And so again,
Right.
we've already given that much notice, if you will, for that expectation of vaccination. And so again, that's what we wanted to do, is be sure that people really did have, especially those who are going to take the Pfizer or Moderna, 2 shots plus 2 weeks past that time frame.
And what about the liabilities of, well, I guess that's gonna be part of the impact bargaining. What happens if somebody gets ill from the shot and cannot work? I mean, I know of one guy, my attorney out in Fall River, his tenant took the shot and 2 weeks later he's dead. Was it from the shot? I don't know. But he was healthy prior, then 2 weeks later he's dead.
No, that's terrible to hear. I mean, what we
I know, but
yeah.
there's a liability issues that's gonna need to be addressed with this.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it goes back to, I don't know if everybody's aware, but there was a court case back in 1904, I think it was, Jacobson versus Massachusetts, that kind of gives the government the right to push a vaccine or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, this really isn't a vaccine, but anyway, it's not in the normal sense of the words, but there's a lot of liability with this that the colleges are assuming, I think. What about medical exemptions, religious exemptions?
Yeah, that's part of what we'll absolutely
All right.
be working through. And again, as we shared, implementation may look a little different for employees based on some of these conversations than they might for students. Some of the things that I want to be sure that I stress, we have an open meeting, many of our stakeholders who may be listening in. One is, this is not new news for our school of health. Those students and many faculty are required already to be vaccinated for them to do clinicals, for them to go out into healthcare facilities. They already have this requirement. So there is one of our schools who's fairly well versed in all of this. I also just want to stress, again, everything that we've heard, not just at the federal level, but from our own state public health professionals, is that the vaccine, especially now with federal approval, that was a big step in all this, really is safe. Yes, there are complications and we hear about some of these, but they really are the exception. I know that there's some vaccine hesitancy out there, but we are really trying to do our part to help demystify the value of this and how much it really helps prevent death, quite honestly, and certainly lowers the severity if people do get infected. Well,
the mortality rate was only 0.5%, anyway. And there was just an article that came out that a full 1/3 of the people with COVID are fully vaccinated. So I question, and then they didn't dive into how many people had the one shot. So it's anyway, like I said, I'm not debating the merits of it. That ship has sailed. It's the implication and the putting it in place that I'm questioning. I mean, it's even though I may not agree with it, but that's where I'm coming from. Is all of that liability and anyway. All right, thank you.
Appreciate that. So I believe with the next slide, let me just see where we are. Yes. Okay. So now how helpful again to hear from other members of senior administration. I'm going to turn it over to Darcy Kemp, our Vice President of Student Affairs, who will share a strategic outlook from that division. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Cook, and good morning, trustees. I appreciate the opportunity to share the fiscal 22 outlook and strategic initiatives for student affairs. This morning, I'm going to highlight some examples of enrollment management and retention initiatives that are aimed to improve the access, retention, and completion of students of color. You may recall some of our previous discussions around the Success Fund, which is an acronym for Supporting Urgent Community College Equity Through Student Services. These funds are intended to support targeted solutions for community college students by investing in wraparound supports and services to improve outcomes for the most vulnerable populations at our institutions. Our initial allocation was just over $466,000. And in mid-August, that allocation increased to more than $1.16 million. And a key priority for the success funding is to hire the staff that's needed to provide students with what they consider those designated wraparound support activities. And these can include things like peer mentors, academic skills workshops, field trips to four-year institutions, and targeted academic, career, transfer, and scholarship advising. So as we implement strategic initiatives, we do so through practice changes in conjunction with those investments in key personnel. And as Dr. Cook mentioned, assigning all students an academic advisor is an example of a practice change that was implemented this past academic year. In the spring of 2020, there were 771 evening and online students that were assigned to a department, not a specific individual. And these students did retain at lower rates, and in particular, disproportionately students of color were impacted. So with the use of success funds, we're also going to be hiring an additional academic advisor who can specialize in STEM and serve as a dedicated liaison with the School of STEM as well. And STIC has operationalized our Male Initiative for Leadership in Education, also known as MILE. And this program is designed to provide inclusive academic support, mentoring, and community engagement opportunities to male students with the goal of increasing enrollment, retention, and completion of our Black and Latino males. So you'll recall that this was part of the conversation last fall when we took a look at our data and saw that our Black and Latino males were not accessing STIC at the same rates. And so this program, MILE, is intended to improve our outcomes for our Black and Latino males. I'm excited to let everyone know that we just hired the director of this inaugural program and initiative. So I'm really excited about that. And success funds will also be allowing us to add 2 full-time academic and transfer advisors specifically to work with our MILE participants. MILE, of course, is going to collaborate with a lot of offices and departments on campus, and in particular, TRIO Student Support Services. The TRIO team serves Pell eligible first generation and students with documented disabilities. And both programs, MILE and TRIO, are dedicated to providing that academic and wraparound support for the students that they serve. So the last bullet here, students on academic probation are considered another vulnerable population that we serve. And through success funds, we are looking to hire an additional student success coach and retention specialist. So these are a few examples of how we're leveraging the success funds to support enrollment management and retention initiatives, again, to improve the access, retention, and completion of our students with an emphasis on students of color. And I'm going to just pause there and see if there's any questions that I can answer about the fiscal 22 strategic outlook for student affairs.
I do have a question. Good morning.
Good morning.
My question would be, so you mentioned the MILE program. It's a new program. These other programs, have they been around for a while?
The TRIO Student Support Service has been around for a very long time. I would say decades. Dr. Cook, is that correct?
It is, and key underneath this great question, Trustee Hogan, is funding, right? Funding equals full-time positions for us.
Yes.
So we have had TRIO. Darcy was probably going to share it more recently, but we did not necessarily have the funds to hire a full-time staff member. We had leaned on others to sort of do this as part of their job. So this new money really allows us to actually invest in positions for longer term. And again, that TRIO program, as Darcy mentioned, that's federal dollars. And that's why we've been able to have that as long as we have.
Right. And I asked that question because I was just wondering how have those programs been promoted? What's been sort of the interest from the students into participating in those programs?
Yeah, that's a great question, Trustee Hogan. We certainly saw with the onset of COVID pandemic and, converting to more online classes definitely impacted the number of students in TRIO Student Support Services last academic year. But what we've done is create some really strategic collaboration and key points in which TRIO works with the admissions office to get information to students about TRIO. We can't recruit students to TRIO, but what we can do is provide them with the information and try to provide everyone with information about who TRIO serves, what students can receive as far as the academic and wraparound support services. And so that way, when somebody's engaging with a new student, they can say, I think you would really benefit from the TRIO program. So we were able to more than double the number of new first-time, first-year students enrolled in TRIO for this fall. So we've definitely seen some benefits from that, increased collaboration across the campus and the knowledge of, who will be able to take advantage of TRIO services. Mile, we anticipate to be the same. Our director has already gone and presented in various classes and has done some outreach campaign to students who identify as Black and Latino males who are new students this year. So we anticipate a very similar process, that we'll go out and we'll share this information and students will be referred to the programs for which they can receive support.
Thank you.
This is board member Normal Dan. I got a quick question. Are we approaching our nonprofit agencies with these programs? And maybe they can help us with resource and maybe kind of collaborating with us with recruitment and some of that as well.
That's definitely one of our goals for the MILE program in particular. And from an admissions standpoint, presenting at our various community-based agencies is also a key priority. So whether that's going and presenting in high schools to counselors and, sophomores, juniors, seniors, perhaps even middle school at some point, all the way to our community-based agencies, absolutely. Those are part of the key priorities.
To that question, I would say we've really tried to be much more intentional with those partnerships. So for example, New North Citizens Council received a significant youth build grant. We're in on the ground floor with them, not just a typical letter of support, but specific resources and personnel commitments to help with that pathway. We've also done some of that work with the Urban League on some of their STEM work. So it really is being specific and intentional with that. Appreciate it.
This is Betty. I just got a quick one regarding the success funding. And you mentioned initially what we had been getting, but total allocation is up to 1.12 million now. Is that recurring funds? In going down further, there's addition of number of full-time or part-time positions, and that is there a point where they come on to STCC's budget, or do we have these success funds recurring to cover that?
That is such a great question. And one that is constantly on my mind as I work to implement these initiatives. Trustee Esposito, the funds need to be spent by June 30th, 2022. And when we do these postings, they do have to be indicated as grant funded positions with that end date.
Okay.
Now, what I can tell you is this is the challenge that all the community colleges are facing right now, is we're trying to stand up these really important initiatives. And what we've been told is to really try to take those one-time expenses that we might have and charge those against that initial allocation, that $466. So if we're going to purchase some Chromebooks, if we're going to get some learning and study strategies, inventory codes for students, try to get things that are not going to necessarily be a reoccurring expense. And then that second half of the funding, try to allocate the positions against that, because the goal would be for that allocation of funding to make it into the budget and for approval for fiscal 23. So that's what we're working towards. And again, every community college is facing the same exact challenge. It's wonderful to have the money, but it comes with its challenges.
Oh, sure. Right. Right. There's some ties to it.
So we are not obligated, Betty, once that funding ends, to somehow have to absorb those positions. The position really is their grant funds. And that's the hard thing about public higher ed, is you have this ability to add more personnel. That's really important. But also that can go away, right? There is no guarantee. It's part of the legislative process. So we'll certainly advocate. And in this case, it's the 15 community colleges really helping make the case for this assistance with more personnel. But things we'll see.
Great. Thank you.
Just to interject, I just want to acknowledge Trustee Starks has joined the meeting.
Morning, all.
Morning. All right, so we'll take the next slide. So happy to have Dr. Geraldine DeBerlin, our Vice President of Academic Affairs, share strategic outlook for her division.
Good morning, and thank you for this opportunity. What we've got here is looking at several bullet points of what we're looking at in the academic affairs realm. The first one, we've got the academic plan. Now, I had previously presented to the trustees the academic plan in some detail, which had some 15 goals, etc. But for this morning, we're really looking at just a couple of priority goals, which are basically in keeping with the Board of Higher Education strategic plan. In particular, looking at a reform in developmental education, the trustees have been presented with some detail of what the College of Liberal and Professional Arts has been doing vis-a-vis the English developmental courses. And that was a presentation you had from the LAPS Dean, from Dean Greco, in which it really looked at creating co-requisite models. We know that students who get placed into developmental education courses as standalones basically linger and languish there and don't really have very high completion or success rates at all. In fact, they're quite low. So the co-requisite model, which is something that the state of Massachusetts is very supportive of, is developing courses that provide students the ability to actually accumulate credits in areas which will get them forward in their degree completion. The English department has also been working in tandem with other departments, for example, in co-requisite, for example, of having English courses that are also supportive of psychology or sociology courses that have writing components. And so there's an element of teamwork going on between the faculties in those areas. In addition, we've got a course in critical thinking and English, again, that provides that same sort of co-requisite model. So, and I'm speaking to you basically as a linguist, knowing that when we're teaching students, if students can see, if you're just teaching them grammar in isolation, but grammar for something, or a language for something to be able to function. And in the same way, that sort of philosophy of having that very discipline specific target assists the students in moving forward and is a high motivation. The other courses in which we have had developmental education have been in math. And that is a project that is currently underway. This last project was completed in this past year as far as the English developmental, the placement process. In math, we have Dr. Vanessa Hill working in concert with the math department. She's taken a year as a sort of our faculty. I forgot the title, Dr. Cook.
The Innovation Fellowship.
Thank
So
you.
We'll give her her due. She is on
Yes.
this call in case there are questions about that. Yes.
Thank you. So she's actively working with the math department, the STEM dean, and the other faculty, looking at the developmental math courses, again, in developing those in the same principles, developing the co-requisite models to help our students, because so many of our students falter in math and then don't carry on, particularly in their STEM education. So the changes for that in math should be implemented by fall of 22. So we're really moving that needle forward in a way that is helping our students to move forward. And that's really the fundamental issue that we're trying to address. The second priority goal that we've pulled out for you today is the working with faculty to address retention and graduation for students of color. This is again very high on the Board of Higher Education, high on our own sort of agenda for not just equity, but helping our students. When we look at our population and our profiles, 40% of our students are white, 30% of our students are Hispanic, African American, Black about 15%, and other 15%. So we really need to be looking at, we have had a number of programs that have helped our students of color, but we really need to scale those in a way, and we have opportunities to do so. In particular, we want to be leveraging the work that was done in the last 5 years with our Title III grant, which is now basically expired, but we anticipate considerable new funding with additional federal STEM grants in STEM, for which the agenda, a large proportion of that agenda is the retention and graduation for students of color. And this will provide funding, and this is on the back of the question that Trustee Esposito asked Vice President Darcy about funding. This is funding for 5 years, as opposed to funding that expires next year. So although the funding, again, doesn't, by and large, does not obligate the institution at all to absorb the personnel lines, it does provide us time to use considerable monies for more strategic planning, rather than trying to figure out how to hire all these folks and then not being able to continue with the student support services, advising, professional development, direct support to students in all sorts of areas that we're able to now provide with this anticipated funding for the next 5 years. And this also, of course, works with, as noted, professional development, additional areas that help our students are developing clear pathways for progression. Sometimes it's a little difficult for students to see how they get from A to B to C in their own programmatic decisions, and the programmatic decisions that they make that they then subsequently change. So we're trying to develop programs, for example, in LAPS again, the faculty is working on developing a core curriculum that all students would take in the first semester. Knowing that so many students in that first semester decide to do something else, having taken those core courses, that means that they haven't, quote, lost any time. They're able to move on, having still taken courses that will assist them in their degree progression. Any question about those issues or questions? Then moving on, looking at clarifying the framework for program sustainability, viability, planning in concert with the Chief Financial Officer. One of our issues, one of our concerns, as you've noted in our many meetings with the trustees, is we're suffering now a 20% decline in enrollment. In 2019, we had approximately 5,000 students. In the fall, in 2021, we have 4,000 students. So that's a 20% drop. So the institution needs to position itself to absorb the impact of this decline. As presented previously to the board, criteria would include factors such as program enrollments, credits generated, market need, employment, competitive offerings, faculty-student ratios, equipment, facility expenses, and support services. And this, of course, is something that we'll be working with Vice President Nathanson on the cost analysis and using frameworks to manage on this. When we look at our programs themselves and our decline in credits, we not only just we look at 48,000 credits back in fall of 2019. We're currently looking at some 36,000 credits in 2021, and I believe that the Vice President Nathanson will be addressing that a bit more. We also look at our program enrollments themselves and our faculty-student ratios. We have 9 programs with fewer than 30 students on our campus. And we have, we have the higher enrolled, we just have some higher enrolled programs, and we presented those. But these are, again, information that we want to be looking at, in particular where programs are suffering the greatest losses. We've had some surprising ones in the sense in our computer information technologies, while still robust enrollments in comparison to other programs has suffered quite a decline since 2018. And similarly, our engineering science transfer programs in computer science and engineering have suffered the greatest losses. So still, quote, robust enrollments comparatively internally to the college, but have suffered considerable declines. And so we need to do deeper dives to see what's happening there. Conversely, our business administration program has had declines. However, this summer, with an enormous faculty effort, we're able to get the numbers up above 300. So we're very, very pleased with that. Any questions on that particular area?
Madam Chair, Bill Johnson, you said we're down 20% in students, but then I caught something. You said we had 48,000 credits, which that's really where the money is.
Right.
And you said we're down to 36,000. So that's a 25% drop in credits.
Correct.
So there's another issue going on here that the students is dropping, but the students we do have are taking less credits. That's the only thing I can come up with. Only
that's
logical
correct.
answer.
Yes.
So they're taking less of a workload. So in reality, I mean, yes, it's not good that we're down 20% in students, but it's the credits. That's what matters. And that's 25% down. So that's
yes. The only you're absolutely correct, Trustee Johnson. The fall 21 enrollments are not complete yet. We're having robust enrollments for what we call our fall 2 term, which will assist us in getting some additional credits on there. That's not going to overcome that the numbers in great percentages, but it will get that percentage up. So the final credit figures for fall of 2021 and ditto for the total enrollment won't be available until after we've completed after we've closed out the fall 2 term, which doesn't start until October 27th. But
So
we are
still
seeing
fluid.
robust
Okay.
enrollments there.
So I don't know if this is too soon in the agenda, and I can get hollered at. I'm used to it, but there was a lot of discussion about programs that were discontinued, and we put them in place. How did that turn out? As far as, from what I understand, not well. But with these numbers, we're going to have to be looking at some other shifts and programs, or we're gonna have to reinvent ourselves somehow, because we're not going to sustain ourselves with this type of decline. I mean, that's just bookkeeping 101.
No, that is correct. We do have a number of lower enrolled programs. When you're looking at what we consider to be robust enrollments, there are some caveats to that, particularly in our health science programs, when by accreditation, certain student instructor ratios are mandated. So in those cases, we have to, as we look at health programs in particular, with certain enrollments, because of the accreditation requirements, we have to be very careful how we assess them vis-a-vis what those costs are. That is not the case necessarily in other programs. However, for example, in advanced manufacturing, et cetera, in our mechanical engineering programs, which again, right now have about 115 students, although they have suffered a decline, the actual labs themselves, for example, when they're working, with CNC machines, et cetera, we do have a limitation on how many students can be in those labs, just on, obviously for safety reasons. But yes, there are constraints. There are things we have to look at. There is a lot of data that that we will be providing the trustees with as we go forward, and we look at this over this next year.
And I'm sure there's some core courses that you can't get rid of because they have to go along for the degree, I guess, you know what I mean? So even if there's a low enrollment in some core courses, I assume you can't get rid of it because they need to have that course to complete the whole degree. So
yeah, obviously, I've been looking at this obviously for a number of years. What we do see is a phenomenon very often, and we are a 2-year institution, so basically our courses are 100 and 200 level courses. So what we often see in programs, and when you look at in-program enrollment, that doesn't necessarily reflect how many students are properly active in the program. They may be registered in the program. But what you also have is perhaps students taking the initial 100 level courses, or at least the intro courses to those programs, and then decide not to move on into the 200 level courses. So we do see quite a bit of attrition between the 100 and 200 level courses. And that's to the detriment of the program.
Okay, back to my original question, the 4 courses that were put back in, like I said, I don't know if that's too early in the agenda here to talk about it, but what was the outcome with those 4 courses?
Well, we reported it, looking at as the outcome. I mean, remember the programs have just started now, but
no, I'm talking about. Well, I'll make it easy, Annie. From what I understand, the college spent roughly $100,000 in advertising those 4 courses that came back.
Yes.
From what I understand, there was roughly 11 students that enrolled in those courses. Is that correct?
I can actually give you the figures as of yesterday. The numbers of students enrolled in the landscaping program are 13. In the civil engineering technologies is 12. In the biotech is 8, and in the biomedical technical engineering it is 8. The dental assisting program will not run until the spring, so we're not registering students at this stage.
Okay, so those are better numbers than what I had heard prior or seen prior.
Yes, I think, well,
Karen, you want to talk about the difference between continuing students and new students?
In continuing students in landscaping, and 4 of those were continuing students, so students that were newly recruited. So what you originally saw on those figures, remember we were also in what we call a teach out process. So some students were still in the program that had yet to complete the program, and so we were teaching them out. So the total figures I just gave you now are students who were continuing in the teach out process, and students who've also been newly recruited. What you saw in the marketing, the results of the marketing figures, and those figures were the new students that had been recruited to the program.
Okay, so that was the 11 or whatever. Okay.
Yeah, and again, those figures keep, now that we've sort of settled in, and I don't think any fall 2 courses are offered for landscaping, I'd be happy to provide the trustees with new versus continuing students and the breakdown of those particular programs.
Thank you.
Just want to recognize that Trustee Kraus has joined the retreat. Good morning. A good comment, Trustee Johnson. I think it really goes to what we started the retreat is our fluidity and our agility at the college. that we'll continue have to look at that, look at programs, look at full-time students, look at credits, and see where we land as we continue to kind of navigate the landscape we're in. But appreciate the comments.
Oh, Madam Chair, I think that's where I was going is you mentioned agility and fluidity, and last year was, I thought that's what was happening, but that's not what occurred. And I just don't want to see a repeat of what happened last year again, because we do have to act quickly and we do have to be fluid with this type of situation. And that was anything but last year, the way it happened. So it's well, it did start off that way, but didn't end up that way. So anyway, thank you.
Absolutely. And I think that talks to process, and the process did work, whether people like the decision or not. And I think to your comment is right on, Trustee Johnson, is that we'll continue to engage and support our administration and our faculty and staff and see what are the things we can do to encourage students to go to STIC, because we all understand the value of STIC in preparing people for either their education or for their careers. So we'll continue to be a part of that process.
You'll see us. I want to give Jerry a chance to just finish off the last couple comments here, but you'll see what we're trying to do is be integrated trustees. So later when our CFO presents, she's going to help map this to a visual that really shows the budget piece. But we wanted to be sure that you knew from academic affairs just how much thought depth goes into these considerations. Yes, there's a lot of moving parts and a lot of what we know ultimately is that with the enrollment continuing to be as challenging as it is, we want to already be having the conversation so we can show you ahead when we're trying to plan for next year's budget in February, March, April, the kind of thought that we have already invested into that. So again, certainly more to come, and certainly with a great level of detail attached to it. Jerry, do you want to just give a couple mentions to some of the other outlook there from academic affairs?
Thank you. So looking at the next one on continuing academic program review with the integration of equity, enrollment, facilities, and infrastructure. So this is a process, and again, we have a 5-year plan. We're now in year 4 of completing. We've nearly completed all of our programs have gone through this. One of the issues that we look at in the program review process, which this is a faculty-driven process. The faculty look at the demand for their programs that they're reviewing, enrollment trends, both general and at course level, program staffing, demographics, the developmental placements, the curriculum, and the equipment currency. We'll also look at the use of technology, yes, revenue and cost, the student learning outcomes, which Dr. Cook spoke about earlier, which really looks at what can students do, what are the skills that they have after completion of this program, and the assessment process, which Dr. Cook again had explained with additional detail. We also look at the capstone courses, employment, and then another thing we need to be looking at are course and program synergies. So combining courses in the light of declining enrollment and then subject duplication across the schools. So that's a discussion with faculty and with deans. When we look at collaboration with workforce development to align curricula towards credit pathways, for example, engineering and health, lots of work going on there. And again, collaboration with workforce development and the deans in how best we can position the students who come through workforce, who are looking at upskilling, and how we can move them forward in other areas if they're seeking to advance their careers. Given that what the percentages are across the country of students who do not have bachelor's degrees, much less frankly associate degrees. So when we're looking at educational credentials that would be helpful to advance students in their current careers, those with some college experience and no degree, and those with associate degrees give the highest priority to having a bachelor's degree. Right? Those without high school diplomas or with technical and vocational degrees prioritize licenses and certificates. So this is information coming out of Strata, the Center for Education and Consumer Rights, noting that 46% of the workforce in Massachusetts are without 4 years degrees feel that they need more education to advance. And so hopefully we can position ourselves to move that in our work in academic affairs with workforce development. And again, with the deans in particular, looking at their programs to see what we can do to help students move forward. The last point we're looking at is to assess the impact of the mixed modalities, including fully online, has had on enrollment and retention. And as Dr. Cook mentioned, we've invested heavily in faculty in helping them to be able to deliver courses online. However, nevertheless, it is true that online is not for everybody. And in that case, we have suffered in our retention rates overall with and again, we need to break this down further, but our ABC rates, that is the students receiving grades of A, B, or C across our different demographics has suffered as a result. So we will be working very, very much this next year, and particularly this fall, looking deeper dives into that data and hopefully getting getting more courses back on campus, if not fully on face-to-face, at least more hybrid courses, as we know so many of our students really do need to have that sort of face-to-face, albeit masked, touch in the classroom. And I'm going to stop here and see if there are any questions from the trustees.
I'm sorry, this is Bill Johnson again.
That's okay.
This is more of not a question or comment, as a thought, I guess, or whatever. I was just listening to what you're saying. You said some of the students are having a hard time online. Has the college thought about putting like workstations in some area that's underutilized for students? So they can still be online, but they can go to the college, use the college computer, have like a little workstation. Or with COVID, that's just not going to work, or
actually, Trustee Johnson, actually, we've done a lot to help students actually access. We've provided hotspots, we've provided computers to students. We've also done a lot of work with the technology so that students could access the software from the software on campus from their computers at home. And yes, and in a lot of the applied, particularly in the STEM, first of all, in the health sciences, in the allied health programs, the students have been on campus in limited sort of, I guess, limited residency, we could call it, in labs. And in the STEM areas, in some of them in mechanical engineering technologies, in electrical engineering, the students have been coming to campus for the labs. But yes, I mean, we're doing all we can to provide that support.
Thank you.
If there's no other questions, thank you, Jerry.
Thank you.
Next up, I believe, yes. So our interim vice president of advancement and external affairs, I'll turn it over to Dr. Shea Butler.
Good morning, everyone. So it's day 107 for me, and it's been an exciting and productive journey. I've met many amazing students, alumni, faculty, staff, yourselves. To echo what Chair Murin said at the start of the meeting, I can confirm and affirm her remarks that I've been out in the community, and everywhere I go and everyone I've met has spoken so highly of STIC and either has gone here or has a relative that has come here. And this is very important because in the work that I do particularly, it's about leveraging these connections and relationships and affinity towards the college. So starting with advancement, this past Tuesday, the foundation met for its first annual retreat for this year. Bio reports of the directors who were in attendance in person and on Zoom. We offered a hybrid retreat. It was a success at the meeting. We termed FY22 as the year of re-engagement. So at a high level, the goal is to really re-engage individual and corporate donors, alumni, and prepare students to become and remain engaged with the college post-graduation, post-certification, even as they leave and transfer to other institutions. So at the retreat, we communicated our FY22 fundraising goals for the year, including our restricted goals, our unrestricted, our plans to increase alumni engagement and by what percentage, and our plan to increase the number of student scholarships and by what percentage. We reviewed the high points of the fundraising plan designed to meet these goals, as well as the strategy and tactics that we implemented to reach the goals. For your knowledge and information, restricted, we set the bar at $100,000, unrestricted $200,000, alumni scholarship engagement 10% over last year's numbers. This approach we feel is comprehensive. The plan that we created, the advancement team, is multifaceted and it's data informed. We're taking a systems approach, which involves us to look at our policies, our procedures, and our practices, and to make any needed adjustments to advance or remove impediments that we found in our way. In my executive report, I shared some of our early wins of my first 100 days, including in June, raising an additional $30,000 in endowed funds towards a state matching grant. The team had already raised $76,000 prior to my arrival. So we submitted a total of $106,000 and received $53,000 in 2-to-1 matching funds from the state. In July, the Director of Operations completed a massive data cleanup project that went through over 40,000 records of past alumni to ensure that we had accurate information on file. By way of outcomes, we updated over 27,000 cell phone numbers and over 25,000 email addresses. And this is going to be invaluable to our annual campaign and all of our efforts for the year. In addition to operations and some of the early fundraising I spoke to you about, the board president, Jim Brown, and I have been out meeting members of the Springfield community individually, collectively, and we're having these coffee meet and greets and to really continue to build affinity within the community with leaders, legislative leaders, foundation board of director members, and others. Just want to put an event on your radar. November 10th, we are hosting what we're calling a back to business event, where we're showcasing our greatest assets, our STIC students and alumni, putting them in front of our greatest partners as we position the college to play a lead role in helping to meet the workforce needs of the region. And so we're really excited to be partnering with industry. The Save the Date is going out, and you'll be seeing, hearing, and knowing more about that in the coming days. From external affairs, I've had an opportunity to schedule in-person and Zoom meetings with members of the legislative delegation and meet leaders of community organizations and local business community leaders. In these introductory meetings, I'm asking questions. I'm asking about what are the needs of Springfield, and what are, I guess what you would say is I'm doing somewhat of an informal qualitative needs assessment in these conversations. And we're talking about opportunities and ways that STCC can partner to help our partners meet their needs, and they in turn partner with us to help us meet our goals, missions, and agendas. One of the ways that we are partnering, just by way of example, with a community-based organization is we're partnering with the group called Extreme Science to host a vaccine clinic on campus. Dr. Cook made that connection, and I'm working with the director of our community affairs office, and we're doing this clinic October 30th. You'll hear probably more about it if you haven't already. We're just starting to get information and advertisement out to the community. But this is just one of the ways that we're partnering with the community organization. But we're also looking at working, me in partnership with Dr. Cook and with our CFO, Andrea, to identify and engage partners within our leadership, legislative delegation, and industry leaders to support efforts relating to the Building 20 project. Turning to marketing and communications, central to the core of mission fulfillment is how we communicate and share more about the exciting happenings on campus, both in the academic realm, as well as through the innovative programming that happens. I call your attention to, some of you may have seen the events that we've had out, the list of events that we're holding for Hispanic Heritage Month. We push that out to advertise and in the community. This week we launched a diversity speaker series where we brought a renowned scientist from NASA's Jet Propulsion Lab. So kudos to Darcy and her team for getting such a high caliber speaker. And my understanding is that while I'm new here, it seems that we really get national and global talent to come and participate and speak to our students. And it was a great opportunity. And not only did they speak to our students, but there were students on the call from area high schools. So we are continuing to tell the stories and ways to brand the institution to drive enrollment, improve student success, increase workforce and regional economic development. Some of the ways that we're doing this internally is through the creation of a marketing plan. I believe in planning, I believe in systems, I believe in setting goals, I believe in benchmarking towards goals and reporting out metrics. So we're doing a lot of that within the marketing area. We are partnering with the consulting firm and we're working towards that plan. We are setting strategies and tactics to ensure that we meet our goals. We have a talented marketing team who's done a great job marketing the college at the institutional level. Now we're pivoting and we're trying to drill down and in partnership with academic affairs. Certainly kudos to Jerry and her team and the deans who've been right there locked arms with us as we shift the focus and identify 2 programs, academic programs in each of the schools to really target and invest marketing dollars in a very focused way where we feel there are opportunities to drive enrollment. And even as we do this, we're continuing to invest in marketing of our reinstated programs. We're also partnering to share more about the message of the value of a STCC education in our schools. So we're getting in school districts and we're really excited to be doing more of that. We plan to do more in the area of diversity, equity, and inclusion to ensure that our marketing is inclusive and representative of our student body and the community in which the college resides. We are also focusing on internal communications. We proudly launched a few weeks ago the college's first weekly e-newsletter that shares stories about what's been happening on campus and in the community where members of STIC are involved. One of our headline stories, if you didn't see it, in our launch newsletter actually included an introduction of our new board members. So you were profiled in our first newsletter that went out. And really, we're leveraging the talent of our marketing team, who recently are winners of 4 industry awards. We're really proud of the work that they've done. It speaks to the way they've been able to tell the story and the opportunities that we're going to maximize to continue to tell that story. Of how great our faculty are, how supportive our staff is, and really all that we have to offer. And it shows why we're ranked number 4 in the country as an institution in some publications and other higher rankings and ratings, including the reader rates, where STIC was ranked number 1 college in the region. So we're really excited about the attention, the positive attention we've been calling to the college. And with that, I will end my presentation and open it up for any questions that you might have.
Yes, good morning. I do have a quick question. Great presentation, and I can appreciate you started with the college just shy of 3 months ago, or maybe 4 months ago, and it was my pleasure to meet you at a recent meeting. My question is in regards to how we connect with businesses in the area. I wonder if there's a current or there's plans for internships, supporting internship programs with local businesses.
Okay. Well, I'll answer one part of that question, which is how we engage and connect with businesses. And later, when my colleague Gladys gets on, she can maybe say a little something about internships, which fall under workforce development. But we engage businesses through a multi-pronged approach. One way through the foundation, we have something called corporators. And corporators tend to be individuals who are either served on the foundation board at one point, but have rolled off, but really have a deep affinity for the college and want to continue to stay connected. They usually are members of industry, regional industry, but we also invite individuals who have not been foundation board members, but they just have a love for the college. They donated to the college. So we invite them to serve in the role of corporator. And so they are sort of ambassadors for the college. Dr. Cook, were you going to add something?
Yeah, and that's a great question. So here's the challenge, everyone, especially in the world we're living in with the workforce demands. The way we see hiring is everywhere and just such demand for employees. To that point, Trustee Hogan, we get inundated with every and all requests from employers for our students. And so that's a work in progress. And yes, Gladys Franco, who oversees workforce development, has staff that focus on internships. The trouble is, I think we would need to clone them 5 times over to meet the kind of demand out there. In this case, from this vantage point, you see the energy from Shay. We actually need to ask for support from those same employers, and we need to ask it in terms of financial resources. I think we had gotten out of that habit some years back as a college to explicitly ask for employers, we'll do our level best to try to connect you to our students, but we do need your help in terms of financial support, scholarships, things like that. That's what Shay is really trying to operationalize for us, is that we do the ask. We had gotten out of that habit.
Shay, a couple of things, and your presentation's been great and very informative. You mentioned that, you know, part of what we do through the foundation and the corporators is try to work with those folks who already have an affinity and are aware of what STIC has to offer. How do we get out to business leaders in certain industries that may not be as familiar with STIC, where we really have to expand the knowledge about what we offer and what our students, you know, capabilities are? So really, as we address what are the needs in certain industries, there might not be somebody in that particular industry that has knowledge about STIC. How do we get out and really market STIC to a broader audience that may not be as aware of what we do?
I am so glad you asked that question. We are starting to have conversations amongst the foundation board, taking this almost, you've heard the term 6 degrees of separation. I like to talk about more the 2 to 3 degrees of separation in terms of how we make connections, because we may not know someone in a particular industry, but our network, I have found, particularly with this foundation board and others, they're so well networked within this community that it's just bringing people to the table and prompting the discussion of who do you know, who do you know, who do you know? And so I've been involved in those types of conversations in the past as we think about event speakers, commencement speakers. So taking that same approach, we're applying that now to how we make connections with individuals, industry leaders that don't know as much about the value of STIC, the great academic programs we have, the students we have. So we're sitting down and actually crafting lists of who we know, so we can start to cross-reference and see where opportunities exist and a pathway in. So once we identify who we know, it could be someone mid-level in an organization. It doesn't need to be the CEO, but we're just looking for who can open up that door, those doors, and make those introductions. And then when we get in there, now my job is to equip the board to tell the story. So we're doing a lot of, we have planned some of the things, I didn't want to go too into the weeds, but we're going to be doing a lot of board development this year and topics around how to have these conversations, topics around how to make the ask. So we're going to be doing more training to upskill the board to get them more comfortable with going out and having these conversations. But to the point you've made, once we develop that list and opportunity.
I was going to offer, Shay, that's a great point, right? Trustee Cross, it starts with representation on the foundation board itself. And if we seem to be absent in certain sectors or segments, that will be helpful feedback from this board of trustees, or frankly from anyone, because this is that us work. Those individuals on the foundation board become some of the significant ambassadors to us back to these areas. We need that scope and scale. So if there's ideas, suggestions in mind, we certainly are all ears on that.
And I can tell you, it's on governance's radar. I was in the governance committee, and those were the very conversations that they were having, led by David Park, as identifying where are our gaps and looking at prospective board members on that basis.
Great. And then just another follow-up too, you made a comment earlier in terms of marketing, that part of the marketing dollars is, I think, making an assessment of what programs are going to be targeted for more marketing dollars, separate from the reinstated programs. But how do we determine that? How do we decide if we're going to do specific marketing for a program? How do we know which one? How do we know how much to spend? And I guess then more importantly, how do we determine whether it's effective to market on an individual program basis, or should we be putting more dollars to telling the stick story?
Well, heretofore, we have invested 100% of our marketing dollars really in telling the stick story. We have not done program level marketing, academic program level marketing. I don't want to say there's never a never, right? So we haven't really taken a strategic targeted approach. I would rather say that, to identifying to those programs in the way that we're attempting to do now. How we're doing it, we're relying on, one, the knowledge and expertise of the deans who know their areas, they know their programs inside out. And we're relying on data. I take a data informed and sometimes data driven approach to most of what I do. So we have internal data that we rely on, but we're also, with our marketing consultants, they give us regional data, they give us jobs data. So we're identifying programs that not only there are opportunities that exist internally from a curricular standpoint, from innovative curriculum, from, that we're also looking at externally. Is there a market need? Are there positions in the area, in the region? Because some of the things we know about our students is that they tend to be prone to have a preference to want to work in the regional Springfield area. So, and we're looking at workforce data, we're looking at other factors. And yes, and we will assess the work that we do, absolutely.
Thank you.
Dr. Butler, it's Betty Sposito. Another quick one. I was writing some notes here and wondering, does the college belong to the area Chamber of Commerce that are very active? I know I'm in Westfield. They're very active. They have a great meeting schedule and, that type of thing. Getting out to various community organizations. Norman, I'm a Kiwanian. I know you belong to Rotary. I think it's okay. We can talk.
Right.
But we had Dr. Cook as a guest speaker, and our club was so informed of all about STIC. And we have a variety of members in different professions, and they really enjoyed it. So I was wondering if there's, a connection to the chamber and, community organizations. So that's my 2 cents. That's all.
Well, thank you for that question. Yes, we are members of the Greater Springfield Chamber, and I have on my list of persons. I'm it's been 100 just over 100 days. So I
Right.
haven't met everyone yet.
That's okay.
But don't hit me for saying this. We have been to Rotary, right? Dr. Cook, you've gone to Rotary, so don't tell the Kiwanis that we.
We'll let the trustees duke it out because that was on the invitation of another
okay,
trustee. Yes.
okay. But yes, that is definitely part of the strategy and the plan. Thank you for asking.
Good, great.
Hello, this is Chairman Norm. I got one more question for Dr. Shea. So we specifically are marketing, right? About marketing. How specific are we when we are marketing? Are we marketing in a specific way where we are directly go to the radios? Are we flyers? Are we newspaper? How specific are we? Could we be more? Are we being more direct? Like, are we trying to use a community leader to do the marketing with us to say, hey, STCC, I went to STCC, please be part of it. You know, are we being that direct? You know?
Oh, yes. We take a multifaceted approach. So we rely on digital and social media because we know that that's where you're going to get, I was going to say the millennial generation, but I'm certainly not a millennial, but I'm on social media too. So you're going to get some savvy 50-year-olds. Yep, I said it. Out there on social media too. But we also do press release. We certainly do radio. We do print ads in the high schools. The work that we're using advertisements, direct messaging. Certainly, the word gets out through direct mail campaigns through the foundation to current partners, prospective partners, alumni. So really, it's a multi-pronged approach, and the message is very specific to what it is we're marketing. So, you know, we definitely use a directness. If I'm understanding the question, the directness of our message is certainly very interdependent and interwoven to what it is we're marketing. But we hope everything comes across as clear. And we're just saying, come this step. We have a great institution and you'll get a great education at a remarkable value. And now we're going to go next level and say, and look at this program. And this is the type of credential. Once you get this credential, this is the type of job and this is the type of career you can launch. So we're really excited about those opportunities.
For what it's worth.
Thank you.
For what
Go ahead, Dr. Cook.
I was going to say, Norman, for what it's worth, to put it in context, we only have about a $500,000 marketing budget. There's a lot of other elements that go into community engagement beyond that, including some of the personnel we have. But for us, if we were going to somehow double that, that just crowds then the money that we have for full-time employees. So we've, really tried essentially all of the above, as you heard from Shay, with print, digital, billboards, everything like that. And we've also, toggled from really where almost exclusively we only message the college to now really trying to be intentional with some of the programs. But again, the context is the marketing dollars are still fairly modest. And given enrollments, given budget, fiscal realities, all that, it's hard to really push that foundational budget position on this conversation.
Dr. Cook, we and I'm sure we've probably seen this. I'm the new one in, right? So I'm learning. Have we tried sponsorship money for our advertising? And not only that, like in the Spanish community, I haven't, and I might be wrong, right? I haven't seen an ad on the radio station for the Spanish community. I know that our Latino family now are taxed, not financially, well set to have computers in their house, but if their mom and pops are hearing the resources and what they could do, I think that would be another avenue. But if that, because our funding is low, I think to save, get sponsoring to help us with that. Maybe we could talk that offline in future, or something we could do about that as we go forward.
That'd be tremendous. I know Shay will welcome that. I'll give her the last word on this, but she is assessing, are we in all the spaces we need to be? and
Sure,
in the
sure.
ways like this that we need to. Yeah, go ahead, Jay.
Sure. Well, we do advertise in local Spanish papers. We have ads on Univision. We underwrite Spanish programming as well. But there's more we can be doing, you know. So, and we are having those discussions now. Certainly, will be part of what I hope will be part of our strategic plan as we move towards strategic planning. But also, the Inclusion Alliance here on campus has put out a call for new members, and I'm looking forward to joining that committee and having more of those conversations about what more we can be doing, particularly around translation and direct marketing to our Hispanic and Latinx community in the region. So thank you for asking the question. Some is done, more to come.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Shea. And I seen the good work doing under your days there. Heard some good stuff, so thank you.
With that, I think it might be prudent for us to take a little break, just so we can do bio or get some practice. It's 10:45. Why don't we plan to come back online? You can just keep your cameras off at 11. And then we'll kick right into administration and finance, and we'll continue with the agenda. Okay, everybody, so just take a little bit break, and we'll see you back at 11, no later than 11. Welcome back, everyone. I think we're still returning, so I'm going to just give it one more moment, and then we can, Dr. Cook, transition into administration and finance.
That'd be great.
Yes, just give it one more moment. Okay, Dr. Cook, I think we're good. We're seeing most people return.
Yeah, happy to jump back in again for
Great.
for
Thank you.
trustees. We've got 4 more cabinet members. Again, 1 slide each. They're going to work through each of their outlooks. Let me turn it over to our CFO and Vice President of Administration, Andrea Nathan.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. In administration and finance, as we look to the future, much of our focus in the coming year will be on sustainability and facilities and capital planning. By sustainability, what I really mean is financial sustainability in light of declining enrollment trends. And thank you to Trustee Johnson for your questions and comments earlier. They're a great springboard to this conversation. So the graph on this slide illustrates the challenge that we're facing. The columns show the total credits by fiscal year back to FY16. So we can see that between FY16 and the FY22 budget, credits have dropped by about 47,000 or 38%. Over the same time period, if we look at the line on the graph, the number of full-time employees has remained relatively flat, with the number of full-time employees in the FY22 budget being just about the same as the number in FY16. Since full-time salaries account for the single largest expense in our budget, this trend has had a significant negative impact on our financials. So even if we just look at the change over the last 2 years, since FY20, credits have dropped by almost 25,000, resulting in a loss of revenue of over $4.5 million. That's in tuition and fee revenue. So when we recall that the FY22 baseline budget without PERF funding or without the federal COVID relief funding, that budget, our budget has a deficit without that funding of about $5 million. So we can see that this enrollment decline is creating a situation that really is not sustainable with the current expense structure. So to address this challenge, finance will be collaborating with the chief academic officer and other stakeholders, as Dr. DeBurley mentioned earlier, to develop a framework for evaluating the sustainability of academic programs, including cost analysis. Really, the question is, how do we get the most value out of every dollar we spend? And just to point out, even though my job is really to talk about numbers with you, we will of course be considering important factors such as mission, student success, workforce needs, community needs, and market factors. So this isn't just a numbers exercise, but the numbers really are important, as we can see on the graph. So that's really what I want to mention in terms of sustainability, kind of a succinct presentation. Before I go on to facilities and capital planning, let me stop there and see what questions there might be.
Hi, Andrea. It's Max. So you mentioned an expense analysis as part of this, and how would that look versus kind of what we did a couple of years ago, or maybe even a year ago time, but on the whole value stream mapping process where we were looking at some things there. And so I'm just curious what this expense analysis or how that would be different.
Well, that's a good question. I wasn't here for that. I did see the value stream mapping report, and I think that dealt with certain processes. I think what we're really looking at here is, asking the question, what is the level of staffing that is the best match for our enrollment, and looking at what are the factors that we will use to prioritize our spending. So I think that's really, I think, a different approach to, it's really a value approach versus just a process mapping approach.
Yeah, I get that, but I guess I look at it as more as it's not just staffing as a cost. You look at all your costs, right?
Sure,
Because it's all the
absolutely.
costs that make up the overall spend.
Mhm.
So when you said expense analysis, it just brought my mind to, okay, well, how's that going to be different? You know, and hopefully it'd be fruitful. But I was curious kind of what you were thinking in terms of an actual analysis, because again, we did have value stream mapping. And to your point, it was about a process. But what are you thinking about in terms of what an analysis looks like?
The analysis really, I mean, that is, some of that is TBD. And so we're really just getting started thinking about that. But what we're looking at what other institutions have done to do that type of analysis, looking at benchmarking, what, and really, again, looking at different ways to look at value. What's the best way to get the most value out of every dollar? And so in terms of specifics, I think that's more, there's more to come on that, and we'll be bringing that to you in future meetings. But that's
Okay.
why the work is really about looking at that framework, considering what is the best framework for doing that analysis.
Okay, thank you.
Let me help a little bit with that. That's where we're living, Mac, in some ways, right? And the reason why the chart on the left-hand side is important is full and part-time is 2/3 of our operating budget, right? Personnel is 2/3. So we definitely want to revisit how we valued the matriculation process, right? We really focused on efficiency, value, but ultimately the savings were on personnel when we made that change with that early effort with value stream mapping. Andrew is definitely going to pressure test what we did a year plus ago and look at how that all holds. But the challenge is if enrollment continues to slide, or even if it's where it lives, we can't afford all of the personnel that we have. That's just fundamental to this. We can certainly work on the valuation of that. And I'm reminded by other people that these are human beings that we're, of course, talking about. But this is why we place this visual just this way, is because at core, it's about how many employees we have relative to those dollars.
Madam Chair, this is Bill Johnson. It's the quandary is some hard decisions need to be made. I mean, if I'm listening correctly, 2/3 of the budget is salary. So that leaves 1/3 for discretionary spending and other overhead expenses. And unfortunately, whether the college campus has X amount of students or Y amount of students, it still costs the same to heat it. It still costs the same to electrify it. So I don't see much savings on the hard costs of your operating expenses as it relates to that. There may be some discretionary spending to be saved, but it's still, again, it's going to be very minimal. And when I see 2/3 of the budget for classes, some hard decisions need to be made. Because it's not, if the whole campus goes down, well, how are we helping anybody? We're helping nobody. So, I mean, that's why when a plane's going down, they tell you to put your oxygen on first so you can help somebody. Because if you can't help yourself, you're not helping anybody. And if the college goes down because we try to be all to everyone, it's not going to work. So we really need to make, well, I say we, the administration needs to make some tough decisions, because I really feel that's their hub, not ours. Ours is to be here to support and have these types of conversations. I mean, it looks like and like I said, I'm not an expert of this, but I mean, I guess there's core classes that need to be given. So we got to see how many are core classes for whatever degrees. Then start looking at attendance and cost that's going to have to go into them. And it's just going to come out with simple math. I hate to say it. And then there may be some anomalies where you say we really need to support this or support that for the community, but I don't see any other options than to call down the offerings. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's all I see. I'll leave it at that.
No,
Trustee Johnson.
Yeah, sorry.
I think you and I are in the same camp on essentially, to make hard decisions, you have to leave no rock unturned. and look at everything, right? So that's why I was asking, well, what does the analysis look like? It's got to be bits and pieces of everything in an evaluation and an analysis that will drive the overall discussion we need to be having here, which is, this is just one aspect of it.
Right, and I'll just point out that this is just one slide, one quick overview. There'll be plenty more information coming. This is more of a preview of conversations to come, over the coming months. So we'll have more detailed discussions in the future.
Yeah, and I think, Andrea, it's not unintended that you have facilities and capital planning, right, on this too, because to your point, Trustee Starks and Johnson, is that everything plays in, right? And to keep STIC competitive for what we do well, it's not just personnel, but it's also facilities and capital that drives our students to campus. So let me turn it, Andrea, over to you and to kind of deep dive into facilities and capital. And maybe that spurs some additional comments from the board.
Sure, thank you. So again, this will be quick. When we look at facilities and capital planning, this is really a year to do a reset. So we're going to update our multi-year capital plans. When we do that, we're really going to take a holistic approach, doing a building by building assessment and really consider the needs of the academic programs into the future. So what do we think? And definitely taking into account enrollment as well. So where will the enrollment be? What buildings need to be, have what work? Obviously there's all of the deferred maintenance that was mentioned earlier, and we just need to balance what we can fund for deferred maintenance and for program needs. I'd also just like to thank Trustee Sattler for collaborating with us in this effort. We're really looking forward to him helping us bring meaningful information about our facilities and capital planning back to the trustees over the coming months. And of course, a priority this year will be the continued work to relocate the School of Health out of Building 20, including a submission of a major project capital request to DCAM that we'll be submitting in December, that will include both plans and a suggested funding stack for those projects. So that's really, there'll be much more to come on this in the future, but this is really just a preview of future discussions. So I'll stop there again and see if there are any questions.
Well, this is Jeff Sattler. This is Jeff. Thank you for that comment. And just to let the board know that we have spent a few meetings together, and we have one more. We'll be making a presentation to the board, I would hope by November, December, on all the facilities and give you a good idea as to the numerous projects. And it's amazing how they can control and keep track of how much the work that it takes to get DCAM to get approved, and for us to determine which projects are more important than others. So more to follow on that. And I think it's a great exercise, and I think you will be, impressed and certainly more informed as to what we're dealing with, the amount of square feet that we own. So that's my 2 cents worth. And thank you, Andrea.
Thank you.
In the last internal external meeting, we spoke about how a lot of employees were hired and things like that. But looking at this, it makes me wonder why, and if there was another approach that could have been taken to that. What are your thoughts on that?
No, it's an important question, and I think that is mystifying for so many people. Trustee Selden Riley, sometimes is, how can you show a chart like this and still hire people? Some of this is driven by the programs themselves. When you have a single faculty in a single program, you have no choice, right, to hire if you had a retirement, for example. Also in health programs, every year, if there is a full-time faculty hire, typically it's in that health area. We have requirements with those accredited programs to keep a student faculty ratio. So those are the things. And again, we certainly hire others. There was other hiring for, as we talked about earlier, Success Fund. Those are grant funded positions, so there's some of that work. But by and large, the amount of hiring we're doing is going to be in that area of faculty if we are, because of those reasons. And we are already turning to trying to hold the line on administrators, others, folks like that. But there is certainly that essentialness. When you only have one person doing that job, you often do have to replace them.
Okay, thank you.
Lot of work to do. Andrea, we know that, and Dr. Cook, kind of marrying, seeing where we are with our enrollments. But we've been talking, I think, about facilities for many years and capital planning since I've been to the board. So really look forward to comprehensive, as Trustee Starks indicated earlier, really a comprehensive analysis, right, of what this means from that perspective, factoring in everything. And I know that's a heavy lift, but it's going to be really important for us as a board to be able to make decisions and support the administration to the main mission is the advancement of our students. If there aren't any other additional comments, I think we can transition.
Madam Chair, I apologize.
Yep.
I just have one
Please.
comment, and I guess it's the elephant in the room. I don't want to keep on rehashing past history, but how do we make sure we don't go through what we went through last year? Programs have to be cut. How are we going to get a consensus so we're not second guessing the administration? And I not looking for an answer now, but I think all of us as trustees need to think about that and say because if we keep on doing what we did last year, the college will be bankrupt. So we just everybody needs to think about that and see, how you want that resolved, or what you need for answers to, because whatever programs are cut, there's going to be unhappy people. There's going to be people say, oh, we shouldn't have cut them, blah, blah, blah. So that's just reality. So
I'm having a little trouble staying silent, so I won't on this issue. The majority of last year's issue was, yes, about the program cuts and bringing them back because there was demand in the community as a technical college, and we can have really broad-based discussions about numbers because we have a lot of allied health programs where we train 10 people in a semester and they lose money. And why do we do that? And as we know, most of our programs lose money, so we could just shutter the college.
I think all of them lose money.
But let's be real. The problem and the discussion that led to last year was about information, transparency, and understanding the decision-making process. And that's the lesson of last year. There are difficult decisions that need to be made, but when they need to be made, information needs to be brought forward and there needs to be transparency. And that did not exist in the process.
Well, that's where I disagree. I thought it was very transparent, but that's my opinion. But as a board, I guess then that's the issue we have is, and that's what Dr. Cook, I guess, is going to have to face, is how to make everybody, I shouldn't say make everybody happy, but satisfy everybody's thoughts. I thought Dr. Cook was very transparent, unless he only called me and talked to me. I don't know. Maybe I'm special and he just called me. I don't know. But the conversations I had with him was very transparent. I was not surprised with what the outcome was. So we just cannot keep on we can't take 3 steps forward and 2 steps backwards. That's all I'm saying. And we just need to figure it out. That's we're not going to solve it at this meeting, but that's something we all need to think about and to move forward.
And I think to everyone's point, I think with Andrea going through this, and really for us to be as a board included in that expense analysis, the communication, enhanced communication, we're going to have to make some hard decisions, not just with programs in general, but also the allocation of money for our buildings, because we do, one of the first slides is we've got $315 million of expenditures, right? Deferred maintenance on buildings that are in desperate need of some help. So to everyone's comments, I think last year, but the process also worked everybody, right? And so I think we should be proud of that. We put together that ad hoc, they met, as you said, Trustee Johnson, that everyone's going to be happy. But with additional enhanced economic and expense analysis from Andrea and the cabinet in general, we're going to have to make some of these decisions moving forward if we don't have a very, very large tipping point for our student enrollment. So I think to Trustee Stark's comments, we're going to be interested, Andrea, in that process. Interested if it's going to be internal, external, or kind of like a hybrid, and how you're planning to put that together. Of course, Trustee Starks and Ways and Means will help partner with that analysis and the communication to the board and to support the administration on decisions meeting and moving forward.
Small point and follow up, Madam Chair, and then I know folks will want to keep us moving forward. I'm as eager as all of you to not only continue to be open and candid in these conversations, and I really do welcome all of that, but want to learn the lessons as well with how we manage this. This is, for example, something we didn't have time with given the pandemic last year. So we've really forecast to look ahead. I think there's no doubt, it seems like across the board, about how problematic our budget looks like for next fiscal year. So again, don't want anybody to be surprised. That's why we're having the conversation now. There's facets to this though. So certainly programs, if there's going to be any attempt to suspend or discontinue a program, we'll put that right in front of trustees. We'll ask for your endorsement of that. So just know that in advance. On the personnel, you've delegated that to the president. I have to manage collective bargaining implications of things. That's a separate consideration of all this. And it may mean some version where we can talk most certainly about the budget number that we need to get to, probably, by the way, with your help, with money from reserves to get us to a balanced budget next year. Even as I'm also saying, there will need to be personnel reductions, and we're going to have to manage through that part of it. But again, the challenge we face is when you only have 1 or 2 faculty in a program, if those individuals aren't there anymore, you don't have a program. We are really beholden to the personal aspect of all this. And again, that's a really difficult conversation for us. So I'll just try to summarize that way, and know people want to keep moving forward.
Great, thank you, Dr. Cook. I think we can move to the next slide.
Great, so I'll turn it over to our Assistant Vice President of Human Resources, Dr. Casey Senning. Casey.
Thank you, Dr. Cook. Good morning, trustees. Thank you so much for allowing me the time to speak with you today. As you may know, the Office of Human Resources has a completely new team, and at just 16 months, I'm the longest serving member. However, over the past year, the HR team has developed a solid understanding of our employees' human resources needs and where we can improve our processes to address them. As the college was completing the 2021 self-study, we developed our human resources work plan, and we utilized the content of the study as well as the standard projections to incorporate into our plan. We participated on and began to collect data for the Anti-Racism Inclusion Alliance, and most recently, we've incorporated NECHI Visiting Team Report findings and observations that relate to human resources. So the 4 priorities that are listed on the slide are integral to our human resources plan and how we will contribute to the fiscal year 2022 strategic outlook and the next STCC strategic plan. As you may know, HR has 3 separate databases: HR CMS, DataTel Colleague, and Interview Exchange. That is why one of the first priorities is to utilize and integrate those database systems so that we can conduct queries, track data, report on recruitment, new hires, retirements, and separations of employees. Pivotal information, I might say, for the AIA initiative. We're also creating a human resources master calendar for compliance with collective bargaining agreements, as well as federal and state reporting requirements. In addition, we're developing and enhancing the workflow processes of all functional areas of the employee life cycle, which include recruitment and hiring, onboarding, retention and development, and offboarding. In addition, we're collaborating with STIC offices and personnel that are integrated in the HR workflow processes, and that includes our payroll and business offices for new hires, step increases, terminations, retirements, benefits, leaves of absence, budget management, and invoices. It includes our IT department, pivotal for onboarding new employees, and most especially improving access, analysis, and reporting with HR databases. It also includes external affairs and advancement. We are coordinating on COVID and HR communications and hope to create an HR website landing page, update the STIC portal with policies, employee resources, and services. And we want to be consistent with the branding that Dr. Butler is undertaking. And finally, we continue to be a key facilitator in the campus repopulation efforts. We oversee the work of the COVID case manager and COVID case worker. We're working with IT to support COVID vaccines tracking and a reporting system. We're co-chairing with Assistant Vice President Kaslauskas the COVID response team. We're a liaison with the Springfield Department of Health and Human Services, and most recently have been asked to serve on a statewide COVID requirement task force. And I'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
I think one of the biggest things is the communications, right? That we've been talking about, and I appreciate the emails. Would recommend that our board does participate in Dr. Cook's town hall. Those are pretty informative. I was on the last one, so would ask us to make sure we get that information out, especially in this era. We're still struggling, unfortunately, with COVID in the students, faculty, staff, and administration. Just appreciate all the communications and the attention to detail that is being put forward. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
For trustees, particularly over the summer, Casey was sending out a weekly email as we were sort of ramping back up for on campus this fall. So appreciate HR really handling that type of communication. And for sure, we want to continue to work to be sure trustees have a sense of how that effort is week in and week out across the college. I think we can go to the next. So happy to introduce again, everyone, our interim Assistant Vice President of Workforce Development, Gladys Franco.
Good morning, trustees. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak with you today. As you know, the Workforce Development Division encompasses the Authorized Testing Center, the Career Services, non-credit courses, and the Student Adult Learning Center, including ABE, the Hand-Em Prep, and the ESOL classes. Our focus will be on creating opportunities to put our community to work. We are developing internal and external partnerships to share innovative ideas, learn from one another, and design strategic pathways for non-credit to credit programs and careers in line with institutional and regional priorities. We're going to do that by collaborating with local employers to develop new non-credit courses and stackable credentials. We're thinking about and planning and working, collaborating with our partners to develop courses such as bilingual CNA and ESOL CNA courses, Spanish for customer service, basic to advanced computer and digital literacy, introduction to manufacturing, and an educators academy, creating a pipeline from paraprofessional to teacher pathway and continuing education workshops in collaboration with the academic affairs department and deans. We are providing test preparation courses and increasing authorized testing capacity through offerings such as CompTIA Plus for IT specialists, Keys for paraprofessionals, MTEL for teachers, Ts for nurses, and providing opportunities for members of the community to take exams such as FAA for pilots and drone operators. We are working on increasing our capacity in adult basic education and ESOL classes in line with career pathways, looking to create job embedded education and training opportunities with the employers, and high-set preparation courses in Spanish. We are looking to deepen the connection with students, stakeholders, and successful industry professionals. We really need to cultivate and track the relationships to match the students with the jobs that are available. In relation to that, the question that was asked earlier about the internships, we have a career services and internship coordinator that works closely with student affairs. And what's happening this year is that we're not just providing that service to students that are going through the workforce development division, but to all students on campus, to bridge that gap that exists between our students that are looking for employment and the employers that we've made connections with that are looking for people to employ. We really need to break down those barriers and understand what they are so that we can create access and make sure that we bridge that gap. Any questions for me?
I think a quick question that was brought up earlier, and the use of marketing. How are you getting the word out to what STIC offers, and is it going in cross collaboration with what we're trying to do from a engagement perspective with our area businesses and the community in general?
Absolutely. We're working in hand with our communications department, with Dr. Hayes, Dr. Butler's office, and as well as with community partners, with Mass Hire, with the regional employment boards, and other community organizations such as the New North Citizens Council, the Hispanic American Library, Wayfinders, to really reach out to the community and make sure that we are connecting, building relationships, and reaching as far and as wide as possible.
Great, thank you.
Gladys, do you foresee a pipeline being created, between, say, Mass Hire, for example, them having so many candidates looking for employment, and some of the non-credit and credit courses that you mentioned? You see like a more intentional collaboration happening in that area, for example?
Absolutely. We are currently in conversation with Mass Hire to develop some training in advanced manufacturing and entry-level jobs that could possibly lead to people who are not employed and people who may be employed but want to obtain additional credentials to continue moving up the ladder and increasing their wages. But this is also something that we're doing through our career services. Our coordinator is working with Mass Hire, making sure that our students have a Mass Hire account. That's also something that's happening through our adult basic education courses and our Hampton Prep courses that we are providing. So we really are trying to make sure that every student that comes through any of our programs is connected with Mass Hire and other opportunities that are available for them in our community.
Great, thank you. And I want to mention again, one of the other trustees brought up early on connecting to our local regional chamber of commerce. And I think that would be, I know you didn't mention them, I'm sure you've thought of them as well, but in terms of finding out the needs of the local businesses, large and small, that would be, I think, a good place to make those contacts. And I know Dr. Butler is going to be connecting that as well. So everything is sort of connected. My question to also the Economic Development Council of Worcester, Massachusetts. I don't know if they're on your list, but that would be an interesting stakeholder as well to connect with for larger companies, private companies here in the Valley.
Definitely. As you know, I've only been in this position for a month and a half, but I am working in collaboration with Dr. Butler to make sure that we are tapping into those connections, understanding what the needs are of the employers so that we can match that with the training that we provide.
Hi, Gladys. This is Trustee Starks. I know you've been on the job for a month and a half, so I'll go lightly with the question. But what does the new non-credit course look like? Is that an online thing, or what is that? What are your vision there?
So we've been providing non-credit courses, both online and in person. We are prepared to go either way as needed, as the moment calls for it. And so right now we have CNA courses that are happening in person. And we have courses in the trades that are happening both in person and online. We have the Introduction to Manufacturing course that will be starting soon. That's going to be a course offered virtually. So we really have a little bit of everything to meet the needs of our community members.
Thank you.
I was going to say, Madam Chair, she's got less than half the time of Shea Butler, but brings fluency already to the work, trustees. So it's great to have Gladys in the mix. And she really does know what that will be required to ensure those community connections. So for the question earlier from Samalat around mass hire, really intentional, I like that word, is where we're trying to get to formalize, systematize these types of connections. So I appreciate that, Gladys.
Thank you.
And I think we all know that workforce development happen all the time. And as a new business in the area, we relied heavily on our community colleges and our community partners that were able to bring us workers. And I think a lot of our small businesses will continue to look to us and to other community colleges to provide those services. We just got to make sure that we can also, through data, right, kind of support our successes, whether we're using marketing and placement as really kind of those data points, Gladys. So look forward to more information from you as you kind of lean in a little bit more with the new position. Thank you.
Thank you.
So last cabinet presentation is from our CIO and Assistant Vice President Mary Koslauskas. And what I would say is, as a reminder, and again, NECHI and accreditation is on my mind. One of the things we shared is that back in 2016, a short 5 years ago, this college did not have a CIO. So I think that kind of structural change has really helped us. Mary has done a tremendous job over the last year. And I'm glad, Mary, that we can kind of land there, because cybersecurity and all things information technology is just such a significant consideration. The fact that we can lean on some capital planning now in very different ways. Again, let me not take Mary's talking points there, but thank you, Mary.
Thank you, Dr. Cook, and good morning, trustees. So I'd like to just talk about the priorities and outlook. I'm focused in really 3 areas, which is part of the IT master plan. But really, I put security on the list because, it has been and continues to be a priority for us. You will hear a lot about security and our efforts to educate the workforce, our students, and ways to prevent, detect, and respond and remediate threats in the environment. So we have implemented IT security controls, policies, and best practices throughout the college. At the internal and external committee meeting last month, we reviewed some of the updated IT policies that are aimed to better secure the environment. And this is particularly important with remote and online work. And so also included in the new policies, we've implemented information security awareness training for all personnel. And so we know that the best way to manage threats is through systematic training and by providing relevant educational materials to the workforce. This is also a priority for our auditors, the Executive Office of Education, the Comptroller's Office, and requirement for our cyber insurance coverage as well. So that has just begun, but will continue. Equally important is threat detection and response tools in managing threats to the environment. And that includes ways to anticipate and avoid threats. And this is where tools play a big part in our defense strategy. And so we want to ensure that the proper systems are in place to minimize exposure and, that we have the ability to roll back to a stable state should we be the victim of a threat of an attack. So we follow the defense in-depth strategy. And so that in combination with our policies, our workforce training and the tools, we have implemented several barriers that, together increase our security posture. And so that's intrusion prevention and detection, endpoint protection, perimeter control, and virus and malware remediation measures. Another priority is to update and the infrastructure and applications. And so I spoke about this at Ways and Means earlier this year, the need to continue in our efforts to replace and upgrade our outdated systems and to better secure the environment. So I've listed here a couple of the major upgrades that we have, replacements coming up, the wireless infrastructure, 75% of that needs a full replacement. And also we will have upcoming that we will have to start thinking about, early next year is how to replace our phone system. And so these are just two examples of major projects that are on the horizon, but, along with the replacement of our servers and our switches and other applications, in addition to some new tools that we've implemented due to COVID. So, this is all in our 5-year plan. And, just wanted to point out some of the, quickly point out some of the other projects that we have going on. So one of the things that we're doing is really trying to strive to reduce customizations and complexity in the environment. And this will help us to better quickly apply patches and updates by reducing and minimizing errors and broken processes during the update process, and also reducing downtime. And then improving automation, there's a lot of manual processes that require people to do things. And of course that, produces errors, and we want to improve quality. And this will also help us keep updated and upgraded in our applications. And then finally, one area that we always are concerned about is working on ways to secure funding and support the current and future needs. So we have the 5-year IT capital plan that is about $8 million. And so that maps out to all of the various areas in infrastructure applications and user support and the resources that we need to support infrastructure in the coming years. So we're looking at ways of reducing costs as well, and that includes exploring ways to consolidate systems and software licensing throughout the campus, and looking at redundancy and reducing the same systems across campus. We're looking at also moving things to the cloud and streaming applications versus having a whole bunch of computers sitting on campus, and I think that was mentioned by Dr. DeBurley earlier in some of the things that we're doing for students remotely. So they can have a laptop that we give to them and they can go home and stream their high-end applications from the cloud. And so that will help us to reduce the capital footprint and the cost of systems that we have to maintain. This year, we have several projects that are under the HERF funded projects. And for the remainder of this year, it is a good portion of the IT budget through fiscal year 22, and it does include software and systems, laptops, desktops, wireless, classroom scheduling software. There's a multitude of projects that we are able to fund through that. And finally, we explore and continue to explore and apply for grant opportunities. We have a promising one, actually, that's a telecommunications grant for the Department of Commerce, which is unique in that it actually allows you to include infrastructure, switches, fiber between buildings, which is very exciting because a lot of that is on our budget. And so we're really excited about, applying for that. Also, our information security program, the platform is called KnowBe4, and that was actually funded by the Executive Office of Education because they do continue to work in cooperation with the community colleges and state universities to assist with funding for security initiatives. So whenever we have the opportunity, we try to join those programs so they are funded. So that's just a quick run through of, the 3 major priorities and some of the ways that we are working, to meet the security, the upgrading, and how to pay for it. So, if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Hi, Mary. This is Trustee Starks. So, what do you estimate the range of benefit from redundant systems to be?
Well, so I can give you a quick example where we have, Adobe systems, and some people use that for, the PDF creator, and then some other departments use a different one. And I think there's 3 or 4 tools out there. And so what we're looking at now is to get a site license and get everyone on the same platform. And that, will reduce costs, but it also gives us the opportunity to better control and, put images on software and not, having to install separate applications on each computer. And also we have several areas in the academics that are using similar applications. So, we are still attempting as we, I say I've been here for a year, but the environment is very complex, and there's a lot of different areas that have things that, are not necessarily managed by IT. So as we continue to discover these new applications and systems, that's when we sort of, wrap it into our plan. So, I don't have an exact number for you, but I definitely can, look at that and provide a better idea.
Yeah, because I have to believe that could be very fruitful with redundancy over the years. People just tack on stuff, and there's no connection. So you pulling that together, I think, will be fruitful. One last question from me, just on overall security. About percentage-wise, how much of the overall budget for IT is spent on security?
Well, up until the last year, I would say that probably, again, I'd have to get you exact figures because I don't have that broken down, but just an estimate off the top of my head, I'm figuring, maybe 10 or 15%. But I would say recently now we're looking at a larger percentage because we are putting an effort into endpoint protection system that not only just does, viruses, but it's malware, it's, throughout the organization. So I would say, that has been a really, large cost this year. So I would say, I'd be happy with 20 to 25% because, it is becoming a larger and larger issue to, to the complexity of the systems that we have, but also the ability to protect it. But I can definitely get you, better numbers. Because it has not been broken out that way.
Yeah, no, I understand. That'd be helpful. Yeah, I know I put you on the spot there, but and I guess I lied. I guess one more question from me. So from a security standpoint, if is there anything that you're missing that you feel like you really need that you just can't either afford or maybe hasn't been pushed through the strategic discussions enough yet? But is there anything that we can do to help support you from a security standpoint? Because obviously with each passing day, the more, no matter what company you're at, it gets tougher and tougher. So I just want to make sure from your perspective, you feel like holistically you have a good path around security.
Well, what I would say is that I really, really believe that information security training and awareness and actually implementing it within the departments is, worth more than any system that you can buy. And so we really want to promote and, a culture of security throughout. Now, that being said, we have been, and, without disclosing specific security systems, but we are implementing within about a month, a better security tool to replace something that we did have. And the state is also partnering with us. As I mentioned, the KnowBe4, there's also other systems that are on the books. So I guess if you were to ask me, I would say I would love to have a full-time person dedicated to security over above than what we have now. We have a security person, and he's also in charge of infrastructure. But as far as a CISO, a dedicated person to just doing security, I think I would say that, and all of the other CIOs from the community colleges agree that that is one area that, is fairly new for colleges to have that dedicated position.
Thank you.
Let me put a couple fun points in it because those are great prompts, Mac, for us. Let me just, again, fine point. Training is vital. Again, one of the things we want you all as trustees to know is we have to, again, because of our unions, impact that, bargain the impact. So we can't just all of a sudden make all 750 of our employees go through the training. We have to alert the unions, then we have to have a conversation about that. So this isn't ask for your patience, just realize that's what we have to manage when we put a system like that in place. To the point around investment, we didn't have a director of security until the very recent future. And that's that's a well worth investment that obviously changes how much we spend on personnel. And so we are definitely trying to find those dollars even amidst the backdrop that you've all seen. So we're definitely trying to up that. But those are a couple of real specifics that I wanted to be sure we called out.
Hello, thank you, Dr. Cook. This is Mary. This is Norman. I have a question as well. Being in the IT side of the house at Basin Medical Center, CISO is definitely an important position in any security environment, and I understand that the percentage that you mentioned are pretty honorable. But I think at one point you'll see those percentages go higher because cybersecurity changes per day. We go through patches daily at Bay State, so it's like it's a major job. It's a major intake, and if you want to keep your environment safe, that's key right there. But more importantly, I'm interested in your phone upgrade. You said 5-year plan. Is that a brand new system or is it a refreshed system?
So our phone system is currently a legacy system that has been in place for quite a while. And it is not it's a software-based system. And so we regularly go through upgrades. One of the complexities is that the police department communication also goes through that. So that also impacts how you can upgrade. We recently did a major upgrade within the last couple months. And we are only able to go to one more major upgrade before the system reaches end of life. And in addition, all of the phones on campus will no longer work if we go to a new system. We roughly have 1,200 phones throughout campus. So if you figure an IP system having to replace the core system, your voicemail system, your communication system, as well as all of the handsets on campus, this figure here is low. And so, what we want to look at is any changes or any systems that we do put in place. How will that impact the police department? We don't want to then have them not be able to, be compatible with our system where we have to go out and buy a whole communication system there. And then the other thing is, can we move this to the cloud and, have it, better managed that way? So, we will be starting next spring looking at our options and probably going through a year-long project of, evaluation, putting out an RFP and figuring out the best way to go with that.
Yeah, I can relate to that. We have basically upgraded like 6 years ago our phone system, and we had the same issues you had. We had a compatible with the city, the state, police department, fire department. We have 14,000 sets, 5 hospitals. So it was a major uptaking. It wasn't overnight, and it was up and going. So I understand the pains that you're going to go through this. So if any advice, we're open to have conversation if you could. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for the offer. Appreciate it.
Mary, just let everybody know what the acronym CISO stands for.
I'm sorry. So a CISO is a Chief Information Security Officer. So it's a dedicated position. Sometimes it comes under, the president, or it lives in IT, depending on the organization structure, but it's a person that's dedicated to security throughout.
And we ended up hiring one of those 2 years ago, Mary, so at Bay State. So it's crucial. It is security.
It is.
Norman, does Bay State have a CISO and a CIO?
Yes, they do. They do.
No, I think I heard a volunteerism for to help Mary through this process. So I've already taken that note and put it in pen. So I appreciate the insights and the expertise that you're bringing to us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I believe, Madam Chair, that concludes the presentations, the fiscal year 2022 and strategic outlook from all of us in senior leadership. Again, really looking forward, everybody, to your help and support over the course of the year, and especially through our committees, we'll keep the work going.
Great, thank you. Want to transition now into the presidential evaluation. First, within your meeting packet, the executive committee met on Wednesday, July 14th, 2021. It was myself, the vice chair of Trustee McDonald, and our secretary, Trustee Spazito, to talk through the 2020-2021 comprehensive evaluation process. As you all know, in previous meetings, we did engage the Association of Community College Trustees Organization Act to set up the process, and we moved forward with that process. So before I go into next steps, do I hear a motion to accept the meeting minutes of the executive committee meeting on Wednesday, July 14th, 2021?
So moved.
Thank you, Trustee Kraus. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Great.
Trustee
Thank you.
Starks.
Yep. Discussion. Hearing none, Nanette, would you please call the roll to accept the executive committee meeting minutes of Wednesday, July 14th, 2021?
Yes, thank you. Mary Kate Murin,
Yes.
Janae McDonald, Elizabeth Esposito,
You're on mute. You're on mute, Betty.
Yes.
thank you, thank you. Monique Seldom Riley,
Abstain.
Maurice Lindsay,
Yes.
Vicky Kraus,
Yes.
Samalid Hogan,
Yes.
Phil Johnson,
Yes.
Norman Roldan,
Yes.
Jeff Sattler,
Yes.
and Max Starks.
Yes.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Let me just talk a little bit about process, and then I wanted to talk about next steps. As all of you know, through NECHI and the end of the year, in accordance with the Massachusetts Board of Higher Education guidelines, we're actually required to do a 5-year comprehensive evaluation of Dr. Cook. That was conducted this year. We all know that we hired the Association of Community College Trustees Act. We had a 2-pronged modality. One was the interviews face-to-face through Zoom, one-on-one conducted with all the trustees. And then we also had a survey instrument that was developed, which really kind of focused on multiple areas: fiscal management, COVID leadership, facilities, strategic planning, just to name a few. And this was sent to all the trustees. It was originally, we had come up with a list of 60. We added additional people based on some feedback from our college and community. So we did send that out to 71 members. The entire of community and external partners. The total response rate was 55%. And so my thought was, and would love some feedback, is to use our next meeting, and I believe, help me, Nanette, I think it's October 26th. Did I guess right?
October, let me verify, I'm sorry.
Okay, so use our next meeting to really through the findings and the summary in an open meeting, and was hoping that would work for the board. And we that Monday you'd be sent a high level finding sheet prior to that, so we could have open conversations with Dr. Cook, talking about not just last year, but also the kind of that 5-year evaluation. Talk about successes, some opportunities, and kind of the path forward. With that,
and the date is October 25th. Sorry.
I was close. Okay, off by a couple of days. Thank you, Nanette. Just wanted to kind of open it up for conversations, and if that kind of made sense from the board perspective. Interested in your feedback.
Mary Kate, does that meet your time horizon for when that information needs to be submitted?
It does, Vicky. So we're all set, and Commissioner Santiago has been really flexible. We'll use that word again, and agile, given everything that's been going on. So that will meet the deadline for us to get that information back to the Department of Higher Education.
Great. And you'll send out in advance the, I guess, summary results of the interviews and surveys?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Very similar to we do in packets. And we'll send that, give you time to talk about it amongst yourself, right, to review it. And then we'd have that robust conversation at the board meeting.
Awesome. That sounds great.
Any additional comments or thoughts or different ideas? Just want to be able to meet everybody's needs with that. Great. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I interrupt someone? Nope, just background noise. Great. So I think we'll put Manette, we'll work on that together. And I'll also work with Janae and Betty, putting all that information in. The three of us can really kind of lead that conversation with all of you, and really looking forward to that and to spend some time with you, Dr. Cook, too. Great. So let's transition right into trustee committee reports. Trustee Starks, you had a meeting on August 5th with the investment subcommittee, and also the Ways and Means of September 13th, 2021. Let me turn it over to you, sir.
Thank you, Trustee Muir. I was not at the Ways and Means Committee meeting on the 13th, so I'll skip that.
Hey, Trustee Kraus, would you, sorry about that, Matt, would you be able to just update us quickly of that so we can accept those meetings into the official record? Vicki, you're on mute if you're speaking.
Thank you, Mary Kate. So yeah, I can't really see them, sorry. They're a little bit small, but we did have a meeting on September 13th. I don't know if anyone's had a chance to go through the information. We did discuss the outcome of the investment subcommittee information, which I think Trustee Starks will probably comment on, the investment decision on some excess cash.
Hey, Keith, can you make that larger, please? And Vicki, you went back on mute for some reason.
Stable. And the fiscal year 2021 audit was presented. I don't know if there's any specific questions from folks.
Great. Do I hear a motion to accept the Committee on Ways and Means report of September 13th, 2021?
Motion by Normal Dan.
Thank you. Do I hear a second?
Bill Johnson, second.
Thank you, Bill. Discussion. Hearing none. Nanette, would you please call the roll to accept the Committee on Ways and Means report of September 13th, 2021?
Mary Kate Murin,
Yes.
Janae McDonald, Elizabeth Esposito,
Yes.
Monique Seldom Riley,
Abstain.
Maurice Lindsay,
Yes.
Vicky Krause,
Yes.
Samalit Hogan,
Yes.
Bill Johnson,
Yes.
Norman Roldan,
Yes.
Jeff Sattler,
Yes.
and Max Starks.
Yes.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Mac, why don't we transition into the August 5th investment subcommittee report?
Sure. Yes, we had our meeting on August 5th. We went through our typical, very well done update with Michael Chase, and we talked through our long-term returns, which is for the quarter 5% relative 5.1% versus our benchmark of 5.5%, which is really good. Year to date, 9.1% long-term for us versus the benchmark of 8%. So very good performance on our overall portfolio this year. And short term, again, not much going on with from a return perspective, but we're certainly in line with our benchmarks there. So again, very pleased with the performance and management of our overall funds. One of the additional discussions we had over and above our normal meeting was there were 3 options presented to us by Andrea and both John, which talked about kind of how to manage funds between the short and long-term portfolios. Again, there was one option was to invest 10 mil in the short-term portfolio. The other one was invest 5 mil in short-term and 5 mil in long-term. And then the other one was to invest 8 million in long-term and 2 million in short-term. These weren't presented as for a decision for us to make. It was more just to kind of give us a heads up and looking for some guidance, from us. And these options were actually shared with Michael Chase prior to the meeting, and he kind of gave his perspective as well. So I think as a result of that discussion, I believe that good guidance was given, and the decision will be made to select one of the options and move forward from there. But that was the extent of the full meeting, Doc.
Great. Thank you, Trustee Starks. Do I hear a motion to accept the meeting minutes of the Investment Subcommittee report of August 5th, 2021?
So moved.
Bill Johnson, motion to accept.
Great. Vicki, may I get a second from you?
Yes.
Great. Thank you. Discussion. Hearing none, Nanette, would you please call the roll to accept the Investment Subcommittee report of August 5th, 2021?
Yes, Mary Kate Murin,
Yes.
Janae McDonald, Elizabeth Posito,
Yes.
Monique Seldom Riley, Maurice Lindsay,
Yes.
Vicky Krause,
Yes.
Samalid Hogan,
Yes.
Bill Johnson,
Yes.
Norman Roldan,
Yes.
Jeff Sattler,
Yes.
and Max Starks.
Yes.
Thanks again.
Great. Thank you, Mac, and everybody for taking meetings over the summer. We know how important these are to continue moving through the college, so appreciate you. The next want to transition into the Committee on Internal and External Relations that was held August 30th, 2021. Trustee McDonald is not here, so Trustee Sposito, Betty, will have you give an overview of that meeting.
Monday, August 30th, 5 o'clock, we had our Zoom meeting. At the meeting that night, we had multiple presenters, many of whom we've heard from today: Dr. DeBurley, Darcy Kemp, Dr. Butler, Richard Greco, and Mary Casalucas. Okay. After calling to order and roll call, we looked at initially the first discussion was on enrollment outlook perspective with Dr. DeBurley and Darcy Kemp and Dr. Butler. And again, looking at where we were at that time and then going forward, and really discussed at length enrollment, which I'm pleased we had a nice update today. Let's see, after enrollment, we moved on to placement reform, revamping the AccuPlacer to directed self-placement. Richard Greco from the School of Liberal and Professional Studies did a presentation and provided an overview of the directed self-placement recently implemented method at STIC, which replaced the AccuPlacer. And there was a discussion on that and exactly how it fits into the system. Let's see. And let's see, last but certainly not least, wait a minute, I might have missed a page here. Then updated revised IT policies and a discussion on security, with the committee getting updated on what was being done with regards to IT policies and the security. Conversation with all unit Congress. Conversation was tabled until the next committee meeting. As Chairperson McDonald asked the AAUC leaders to provide responses in more context for data submitted as part of a presentation. So that has been moved forward to the next meeting. President's perspective from Dr. Cook, a review of COVID planning, where we are, where we're going. And that seems like something that we're going to probably continue to be talking about and looking at for days to come. I'm going to be optimistic that someday it'll be off our agendas. Personnel update, introductions, introducing Dr. Cook introduced Dr. Vanessa Hill, Foundation Innovation Fellow and Special Assistant to the President. And Dr. Hill will be on the agenda in November to provide an update on leadership on reforming developmental math. And then NECHI accreditation, shared governance. The STC is going in front of the commission on November 19th, as this was discussed in our meeting today. Dr. Cook and Chair Mary Kate will be meeting with the board. It will be going to Boston. And the visiting team, this standard 3 on shared governance, and this was reviewed in our meeting today as one of our goals is to develop in this arena about the shared governance. And then there was no old business, no new business, and we will be meeting on Monday, November 1st for our next meeting.
Great.
Anything that I missed, Mary Kate?
Nope, you got it all. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Do I hear a motion to accept the committee meeting minutes for the internal and external relations for Monday, August 30th, 2021?
I so move, Maurice.
Thank you, Maurice. Do I hear a second?
I second.
Thank you, Monique. Second. Discussion. Hearing none, Nanette, would you please call the roll to accept the Monday, August 30th Committee on Internal and External Relations meeting minutes?
Yes, Mary Kate Murin,
Yes.
Janae McDonald, Elizabeth Esposito,
Yes.
Monique Seldom Riley,
Yes.
Maurice Lindsay,
Yes.
Vicky Krause,
Yes.
Samalid Hogan,
Yes.
Bill Johnson,
Yes.
Norman Roldan,
Yes.
Jeff Sattler,
Yes.
and Max Starks.
Yes.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Is there any old business? I hope not, that we got all of last year done. But is there any new business? Hearing none, let me just open it up first to you, Dr. Cook, for any concluding remarks before I have my own.
No, just a note of appreciation and gratitude to our trustees. Thank you for your time this morning on a Friday. Thank you for looking ahead with us. Yet another important year in a college doing really, really good things with a pandemic all around us. So I'm just so grateful for your time. And again, we've got a great team here who's going to help continue to lift and move us forward. So thank you.
Great, thank you, Dr. Cook. And just as I started, this retreat, I want to end it too with, again, my appreciation. It is a Friday. It was a long day. I do appreciate that the time and the volunteer time that you give to STIC because of your love of the students, faculty, and staff in the community that we impact. Just a couple of final thoughts. I think we've used a lot of the word agility and flexibility and the ability to for change. We still are in the midst of COVID. We ask for patience and to your remarks, Trustee Johnson, as we move forward and can appreciate your remarks. We'll continue to let the administration impact bargain as needed to protect the community and the students that we impact. I would ask you all to remain safe. That is all I want for everyone. And I think a lot of also is this idea of moving forward. We've had a very, very, and I think we all can agree upon this, the last 18 to 24 months has been difficult. Decisions were made, processes put in place, and decisions were ultimately adjusted and moving forward. I also would like to, in that era, continue to move forward. There is a lot of work to do at STIC. We've talked already about the strategic plan. We'll launch that in January for 2022 to 2025. Within that, it's facilities, it's expenditures, it's expenses, all of those projects that will be really kind of put on the footsteps of our administration here in cooperation with faculty and staff will be needed. We'll also be talking about shared governance that was brought up on the town hall. I believe it was Thursday, Dr. Cook. That will be an inclusive process. I am looking for some guidance from the board of engaging a consultant, but it will be an inclusive process to ensure faculty, staff, non-represented, and students are represented as we continue to move forward, given some of the comments that were made out of the NECHI report. And I look forward as the representative to be with Dr. Cook when we go in front of the Department of Higher Education with all the hard work that everyone did for that self-study. Again, we are so appreciative. Nothing is more important than that accreditation process. But really kind of sets the framework of how we're going to operate from a board of trustees. And I know, Betty, right, we still have some work to do on mission statements and bylaws and all of that work. We'll really need everyone on this board to kind of bring those projects over the finish line. We'll ask the help of the administration, the faculty and staff, and even students, Monique, to make sure we get to where we'd like to be with STIC. And with that, I will thank you once again for your time and effort. Appreciate everyone and really, really look forward to spending the next year with our 3 new trustees as we move STIC forward. Our next meeting will be Monday, October 25th. We'll be working on that agenda and getting you the information as previously discussed with Dr. Cook's evaluation and other business. But thank you so much again. Do I hear a motion to adjourn today's meeting?
I make a motion. I think that we got 2. I have got one from Mac. Betty, you want to second that? Mac, I'd love to second your motion. All right. No discussion on that one, Nanette. Would you please call the roll?
Yes, Mary Kate Murin.
Yes.
Jenny McDonald. Betty Esposito.
Yes.
Monique Selden Riley.
Yes.
Maurice Lindsay.
Yes.
Vicky Krause.
Yes.
Samalid Hogan.
Yes.
Bill Johnson.
Yes.
Norman Roldan.
Yes.
Jeff Sattler.
Yes.
And yes, thank you, Jeff. And Max Starks.
Yes.
Thank you all.
Great. Have a great Friday, everyone, and a wonderful weekend. Hopefully the weather clears up, but continue to stay safe.
Good to see
Thank you,
everybody.
Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks again, everybody.
Bye.
Take care.